Chapter 245. Lu Qing stood there, repeating his words at the beginning to torture himself. The reason why he fought was not something he said casually, nor was it something he did on impulse, nor was it a choice he made under the pressure of external forces without knowing his true thoughts. According to what his master said just now, are you willing to sacrifice your life for this? Are you willing to die for this generosity? Are you willing to suffer for this for decades? Of course, I'm not asking you to do it now. We're not like the Buddhist Zen sect, which focuses on epiphany and can do it immediately after understanding it. Just like the Iron Army, when they first understood why they were fighting, they just understood. It was impossible for them to be willing to sacrifice themselves for it on the spot. Only through experience, practice, and hammering, could they sublimate their understanding into ideas and into perseverance. Only then could they do things that ordinary people find inconceivable. This is also the reason why many dance stage martial artists are stagnant. They think that once they find the will of martial arts and the source of power, they can do it once and for all. As a result, they are gradually influenced by all kinds of temptations and forget their initial spirit. They can't persevere, let alone sublimate to the level that I mentioned before. The long march was indeed a retreat. However, as the saying goes, it is hard to find a general who can win a battle, but it is also hard to find a general who can keep the army in order despite defeat. A defeated army is easily defeated, is the truth proven by thousands of years of practice. When winning, morale can be maintained by hope, wealth, honor, military discipline, and religious beliefs. However, when defeat comes, all of these often become useless. Escaping is instinct, hiding is instinct, and staying away from danger is also instinct. There are very few commanders who can keep the army in order for dozens or hundreds of miles when they are defeated and chased. However, under the circumstances of being chased and intercepted from all sides and the environment is extremely bad, the army actually persisted for more than 20,000 miles without dispersing or collapsing. Not only that, but they had also condensed a steel-like will. This was definitely not something that could be achieved by just going to a certain place and living a good life. The only explanation was that everyone had the same desire. Everyone knew what they were fighting for and how much they were willing to pay for it. There must be a kind of spirit shining and connecting heaven and earth. Then what am I fighting for? Why should I face the difficulties and dangers of the road of martial arts? Lu Cheng was lost in thought. The thirst for victory? No, I would feel joy from victory and pain from defeat, but I wouldn't be willing to pay too great a price for it. Not only would I be willing to die, I wouldn't even be willing to be crippled. There would be duels again and again, and even if I lost, I could always try again. But in a battle of life and death, no one would be willing to die. It was a passive choice. Pure love for martial arts? The yearning to reach the peak of martial arts? No, I do like martial arts very much. But before I picked up the Jin Dan, I didn't think it would be a big deal if I couldn't practice martial arts. After I picked up the Jin Dan, I only had a little more longing for the future. I had a little more hope for becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability and getting a title in the future. Just longing and hope. Could they earn a lot of wealth and improve their social status? No, these were very good, but one had to be alive and healthy to enjoy them. Similarly, not to mention dying generously, he wasn't even willing to bear being crippled. Then why did I start learning martial arts? Lu Qing recalled the past and asked himself blankly. The answer was very simple, and it made him want to laugh. It was purely to get close to Yen Jika, to woo the girl he had been secretly in love with for a long time. I'm such a vulgar person. Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. He suddenly remembered the anticipation, nervousness, and lack of confidence at that time. Then, more images came to his mind. When leaving the villa area, the eagerness to walk into Yen Jika's house openly, the sweetness of one holding a wok of fried rice, the other weighing the vegetables, and finally enjoying it side by side, the inner strength that drove him to Jinkei County without regard for anything else in the heavy rain, the certainty of dreaming of the future together and planning their lives together, the tacit understanding of giving each other rings and promising each other a lifetime of solemnity and joy. In the hotel room, when he woke up in the morning, Ku hooked her arms around his neck and asked for breakfast like an old married couple. The torture of enduring all kinds of torture, the exhaustion of the tremor massage, the surprise of having a kiss mark on his mouth after he fell asleep, the excitement of their first kiss and the feeling of his heart beating violently under the street lights beside Weishui Lake, the surprise of Ku taking the initiative to reach out her hand and the memory of the first time they held each other's hands but lost their direction. Hearing Ku's soft but honest words of fear and apprehension, he felt pity and moved. The nervousness and uneasiness after the confession, and the ecstasy and brilliance after witnessing the reply of, "Let me be happy for 5 minutes first." The excitement of receiving Ku's blessing call on his birthday made him want to roar twice. The warmth of the new year on New Year's Eve when they listened to each other's breathing, the satisfaction of the first cheer in the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament from the girl he loved and the burst of strength because of it. Because they were in the honeymoon period, there were expectations every day, endless topics to talk about and endless joy to feel. Although Lu Qing liked to collect and record the traces of the past, he didn't have the time or thought to reminisce about it. Until now, when the memories flashed, he realized that he and Yan Zhika had been through so much, and his feelings in his heart had changed a lot. This was like the tempering and sublimation of the martial arts will that his master had mentioned. In the beginning, he admired Ku because of her looks and her legendary good character. She was the perfect girl in his imagination. Therefore, when he confessed to her, he didn't dare to say that he loved her. It seemed that he didn't have the courage to say it. He only said that he liked her very much. But now, after merging with the past bit by bit, into his memory, flesh and blood, into his life, Lu Qing suddenly felt that he really fell in love with Yan Zhika. He fell in love with the girl who was willing to communicate with him, fell in love with the girl who was sometimes more rational, and fell in love with the Coach Yan, who was soft on the outside but tough on the inside. At this moment, his heart was filled with all kinds of emotions because of those scenes. His heart was filled with all kinds of feelings, and he was willing to challenge everything for this beautiful feeling. From this to the other, the little touches hidden in his memory were all clear. That was the white hair of his father who gave up his dignity and ran around tirelessly. That was his unspoken and silent love. That was his mother's long-winded words full of concern. That was the bitterness that she struggled to maintain by setting up a street stall. That was the lie that they didn't like to eat meat. That was the love that they had given over and over again. Lu Cheng's eyes were suddenly wet, and his heart was overflowing with energy. He vaguely understood what he wanted and what he wanted to do. Protect. This is the life that I want to protect with everything I have. To protect is not to protect, but to make myself better and better, so that the people I love can also be better and better, so that they don't suffer pain and danger. Lu Qing took out his mobile phone, logged into QQ, entered the collection, and clicked on the first voice message. A soft, clear, and familiar voice echoed in his ears. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Lu Qing, you can do it. Lu Qing, you can do it. He listened to it over and over again, and the corners of his mouth opened little by little. Finally, he glanced at the ring on his left hand, rubbed it, and quietly closed his eyes, feeling the surging and turbulent power in his body. For them, I am willing to face difficulties and not afraid of danger. For them, I dare to challenge uncertainty and disregard myself. He put away his mobile phone, and once again got into a fighting stance. Bang, bang, bang. Seabed quake, mountain smash quake, one move after another. During this process, he only felt that his heart was filled with the emotions just now, and the power just now. It seemed that there were no other distracting thoughts, clear and transparent, both inside and outside. Once the heart was clear, the mind was right. His spirit seemed to penetrate through his whole body, reaching every detail, and vaguely controlling them. With the influence of the internal training method and the medicinal effect of the medicinal soup, he penetrated the strength, making his muscles, bones, and joints crackle. This was very similar to the state of great success in meditation, but Lu Qing only maintained it for a few minutes before he lost the feeling of having the power in his heart. His martial will was to protect. It came from the bits and pieces of his daily life, from the various feelings and emotions he had accumulated in the past. There was no need for him to ask for it, nor did he need to go through any arduous process to understand and discover it. However, he still had to polish and temper this martial will. He had to put this martial will into practice and then strengthen it through practical experiences. It was just like how there were definitely many people who felt that they loved their parents and family, but there were relatively few who could truly persevere in doing so. However, in any case, Lu Qing questioned his heart for the first time, found the initial source of his power, and understood his martial arts will. Whoever dares to hurt the people I love, whoever dares to destroy my beauty, I am willing to fight against them at all costs. He exhaled, overjoyed, and took out his mobile phone to call his mother. Hello, Cheng, why are you suddenly calling me? Are you not coming back for dinner again? Are you not coming back to sleep at night? Qi Fang's voice suddenly rose. Lu Cheng's eyes were hot, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, Mom, what are you thinking about? I'm just. He was going to say that he suddenly missed her and wanted to give her a massage. But when the words came to his mouth, he knew that his mother would definitely be frightened and suspect that something had happened to him. So, in the end, he just played it down and said, I just suddenly felt like eating fried eel. You child, you should have said so earlier. At this time, alas, I'll go to the market to have a look. Qi Fang answered grumpily, but she still agreed. After hanging up, Lu Qing called his father again. Hello, Cheng, what's up? Lu Jisheng asked in confusion. Lu Qing lowered his head and smiled. Dad, I remember that you have finished your Ningxue Daku original proof wine, right? Yes, you have connections. Don't bother your friends too much. It's okay if you can't get it. Lu Jisheng smiled. He remembered that he had made original proof wine during the spring festival. Lu Qing felt that his father wanted it but didn't want to waste his favor, so he smiled and said, Don't worry, it's easy. With his current social circle, it couldn't be easier to make the Ningxue Daku original proof wine. Okay. Lu Jisheng hung up the phone and couldn't help but hum a song. My son is becoming more and more filial. After calling his parents, Lu Cheng's expression became gentler and he called Yan Zhika with a smile. Yan Zhika was being interrogated by her 3 best friends in the room when she suddenly heard her phone ring. She picked it up and answered the call in surprise and astonishment. Cheng? Cool, I think I found my own martial arts will. Lu Qing didn't hide his joy. Really? Yan Zhika seemed to be happier than him. She was rarely excited. What is it? Her abnormality immediately attracted the attention of Gu Shuang and others. Except for the colder Xing Jingjing, the other 2 winked at each other, believing that it was Lu Qing calling. Protect. Lu Qing said concisely. Yan Zhika looked up and asked him thoughtfully, You're right. Protect? Lu Qing didn't explain the specific meaning of protection. Looking at the sunlight outside, he shouted with a slightly red face, Ku, yes? Yan Zhika didn't understand. Lu Qing cleared his throat and laughed in a low voice, I love you. Chapter 246. Yan Zhika was caught off guard and was confused. She was not prepared for Lu Cheng's sudden confession. She was neither embarrassed nor happy, but more confused and frightened. Why did Qing call me and say, I love you? Lu Qing could predict the girl's reaction. Thickening his skin, he smiled and said gently, I was inspired by my training. Okay. Yan Zhika still felt a little confused. The atmosphere was not right. Even between lovers, words like confessions would be awkward. Lu Qing smiled, imagining the girl's cute face. He coughed and said, I'll continue my training. You can have a good chat with Song Li and the rest. Okay. Yan Zhika put down her phone and saw the teasing looks of her friends. Song Li was still feeling touched and envious about how Lu Qing had racked his brains to bring Shushan delicacies to her friend from such a faraway place. She felt that her Du Liu was not doing a good enough job. At this moment, she was the first to speak. You haven't been apart for long and he can't help calling you? Yenjika wrinkled her nose and snorted, "Can't he call me?" Cheng had found his martial will in the initial stage. Thinking of this, she was stunned for a moment. The short conversation just now replayed in her ears. "I think I've found my martial arts will, protect. I love you. I was inspired by my training." After a moment, Yenjika raised her head slightly and opened her eyes wide. She connected the context and suddenly understood the origin of the words, "I love you," and the thousands of words it represented. "I love you, protect." She felt like some kind of emotion was exploding in her heart. She couldn't help but hold the pillow tight. She couldn't wait to call Lu Qing back and tell him the secret of her feelings. She couldn't wait to rush to Gushan Martial Arts School and feel his body temperature. At this moment, seeing the light in her eyes and her expression, Song Li, Gu Shuang, and the others suddenly felt that there was no need to ask anything. The answer was written clearly. After more than a minute, Xing Jingjing suddenly said, "I'm going to participate in the youth tournament at the end of the month." Ah. Yenjika came back to herself. "Sister Jingjing, why?" Xing Jingjing nodded slightly. "I want to see if he has the ability to protect you." Yenjika was speechless for a moment. After that incident, Sister Jingjing not only started to hate men, but also awakened a terrifying supernatural ability. Although she had just entered the professional 9th pin, to be able to stand out in such a strong martial arts school like Huahai University, one could imagine her actual strength. Bang! 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 The airflow around Lu Qing kept exploding. His muscles, bones, and joints responded with crackling sounds. It was only after he tried to use the circulation of the Jin Dan that he was satisfied and ended the afternoon's training. In the days to come, he would temper and improve his martial will step by step. He would train his martial arts down to the smallest detail, so that the force in his body was almost as one, it. This was not something that could be comprehended in a single moment. Calm. Idiot, Yenjika typed 2 words with a blushing and smiling emoji. She didn't need to say anything. Lu Cheng's lips curled up. His heart was filled with warmth and sweetness. This is what I want to protect. This is the source of my strength. He walked out of the training ground and went to the locker room. Suddenly, he saw a familiar inner disciple coming to him. "Brother Lu, do you have time?" Su Rongfei smiled. Lu Qing didn't answer directly. He asked in surprise, "What's the matter?" Su Rongfei explained respectfully, "I want to ask for 2 hours of private tutoring. I saw Qin Rui's training just now and found that he really changed and improved." "Okay, tomorrow then." "Tomorrow afternoon." Lu Qing agreed readily. Tomorrow, Empress Dowager would go back to Shushan. Ku and her family would go on a short trip in the surrounding area. As for the private tutoring fee, of course, there was no discount. Satisfied with his feeling of being a master, Geezer sure drank a little wine happily. Suddenly, he was startled and muttered, "Didn't that brat want to combine things of cultivation? Why did he ask about the will of martial arts so soon? Did he give up trying and take the path of combining supernatural ability and martial arts?" Geezer sure was full of curiosity. He wanted to know what situation his disciple was in and what progress he had made. But as a master, how could he lower himself to take the initiative to ask? He coughed twice and decided to wait for Lu Cheng's good news or further questions. He waited for a long time, a long time, a long time. In the evening, after having dinner with Yen Kai, watching TV and chatting for a while, Yenjika finally felt relieved and put away her uneasiness. Judging from Dad's usual behavior, he didn't find anything unusual at that time. He didn't find Sheng in the kitchen. "Phew, I've escaped this time. I'll learn my lesson and try to keep him in my room." Well, if Dirty Tong was here, she would definitely say that my way of thinking was wrong. Shouldn't a normal person's thoughts be, "Learn your lesson and try not to let Qing sneak into my house in the future"? After watching the news, Yen Kai went into the study. He didn't come out until it was almost 10 o'clock. He habitually picked up his phone and called Ji Mingyu to report on the day's situation. While talking, he happily said. Ku has grown up and learned how to cook to surprise us. Ji Mingyu slid her finger on the touch screen of the computer and said in surprise, learn how to cook. Why didn't I see any signs of this? Hee, I found it by accident. When I passed by Qingyuan Street this morning, I thought that Ku liked the old steamed buns, so I bought some for her. Then I saw that she made egg fried rice and 3 shreds of cold salad. Actually, they were all okay. The 3 shreds of cold salad was a little green, but the egg fried rice was really good. Yan Kai recalled the surprise in the morning and described it happily. Ji Mingyu was stunned and said, you went back at the last minute and found it by accident? The 3 shreds of salad was average, but the egg fried rice was pretty good? That's right. Otherwise, I think with Ku's character, she wouldn't have revealed it until my birthday. Yan Kai comforted him. Ji Mingyu covered her eyes and almost cried because of her husband's stupidity. Your cabbage is about to be taken away by someone else. Yan Jika put her legs on the doll and played with her phone leisurely while replying to Lu Cheng. The corners of her mouth were curled up, full of smiles. At this moment, the phone rang and vibrated. She was surprised to see that there was an incoming call. Empress Dowager. Her heart skipped a beat. Didn't I just greet Empress Dowager before dinner? Picking up the phone, Yenjika tried to calm herself down and said in a normal tone, Mom? Ku, I heard from your dad that you tried to cook by yourself at home today. You made egg fried rice and 3 shreds of salad? Ji Mingyu asked with a faint smile. Yenjika suddenly shivered and thoughts ran through her mind. In the end, she chose to confess. Stammering, she said, Mom, that was the orange. Lu Cheng made it. I made 3 shreds of salad. He just came to cook for me and took a shower. He didn't do anything else. With Empress Dowager's wisdom and experience, she should have noticed something was wrong with her advantage of knowing the inside story. Hearing her daughter's confession, Ji Mingyu felt much better. She sighed and said with a smile, Your father is so happy. He thinks that you did it to surprise him. Sigh, you have to practice hard when you go back and really do it for him. You can't let him be happy for nothing. Her heart ached for her husband. I've been practicing egg fried rice for the whole morning just for him. Yenjika quickly expressed her attitude. She felt quite guilty towards her father. Ji Mingyu returned to the topic and laughed. Lu Cheng didn't listen to me and told you that I saw him? Otherwise, Ku wouldn't have confessed so easily just now. That guy seems to be a henpecked husband, yes. Yenjika answered in a low voice and then argued for Lu Cheng. This is the most basic honesty between 2 people. Oh, you're not married yet. You're already helping an outsider? Ji Mingyu was annoyed and amused. You said he came here all morning and did nothing but take a shower and cook for you? Mom. Yenjika certainly knew what Empress Dowager wanted to ask. She blushed. He was teaching me how to cook egg fried rice. We know what to do. I won't say anything. You're more stubborn than I was, and I believe you know what to do. But how many men can stop in this kind of thing? He keeps asking you to do it step by step. Won't you be soft-hearted? Won't you compromise? Ji Mingyu decided to talk to her daughter frankly about that kind of thing. She couldn't let her suffer because she didn't know enough. Unlike other parents, Ji Mingyu was more open-minded and liked to communicate frankly. Yenjika was like her in this aspect. Yenjika said shyly, Mom, why do you keep talking about this? And Sheng is not the kind of person you're talking about. Okay. I won't say it. I just want to remind you to take good care of yourself and think twice before you act. Ji Mingyu said helplessly. Just from the few words just now, she could tell that her daughter was deeply in love with her. On the morning of July 22nd, Lu Cheng was practicing by the lake in People's Park. In the past 2 weeks, he had absorbed strength from all kinds of emotions and beautiful things of the past, gathered his willpower, and practiced Thunder Zen internally. With the help of the medicinal soup, he had gradually practiced martial arts to the smallest detail. He only needed to practice a little more and he would be able to integrate the strength of his whole body into one. In the past 2 weeks, Yenjika and her parents went on a 4-day trip to the surrounding areas. Then, she accompanied her grandparents who came to Shushan for a week. With Empress Dowager's arrangement from time to time, she and Lu Qing could only practice together, go on dates, and see each other. Their inner desires couldn't be satisfied at all. When this feeling accumulated, she had to fly to Jiangnan. She was congenitally deficient and her family was worried that something would go wrong when practicing the internal training method. Therefore, she had to practice with her grandparents to get through the initial difficult stage. This time, she was gone for at least 10 days. Lu Qing had to integrate the pain of lovesickness into his punches and feet. He used QQ calls and video chats to relieve the pain. In his free time, he surfed the internet, browsed the forums, and met with Jiang Fei, Qin Rui, Qing Qili, and Tao Xiaofei. In the martial arts club, with Qin Rui's good example, 5 inner disciples had received 12 hours of private instruction. Wu Ting and other students also had rosy cheeks, flexible legs, and strong bodies. At this time, the youth tournament was about to begin. Chapter 247. At the lakeside of People's Park. Lu Qing retracted his stance and exhaled a breath of air like an arrow. Suddenly, a series of popping sounds came from his body, spreading throughout his muscles, tendons, and bones. They were all connected, almost becoming one. Phew, I still need some time. Lu Qing muttered to himself with some regret. In the process of constantly condensing and improving his martial arts will, because of his mastery of meditation and the realization of withdraw through the Jin Dan, his tempering progress was far beyond normal, just as Geyser had said. In another 10 or 20 days of grinding, he would be able to achieve complete unity of force in his body. Shaking his head, he put this matter to the back of his mind. He planted his feet and sank into a sitting position. With this sinking movement, his willpower surged, connecting his body and spirit, making his mind clear and aware of every detail. Following which, this willpower that dared to face everything for the things he cherished suddenly condensed and sank into his dantian. The guiding spirits suddenly converged and showed signs of rotation. In an instant, Lu Cheng's qi, blood, force, and even the feeling of being alive strangely contracted into a ball. They circled around each other, maintaining a balance. Boom! The balance disintegrated, and the ball exploded violently, spewing out endless power. Bam! Lu Qing took a step forward and threw a punch. The airflow in the air exploded, setting off a gust of wind, causing weak but real waves to rise and fall on the surface of the lake. This blow was close to the power of a Dan stage explosion. If Lu Qing changed to using Jin Dan Revolution as the fulcrum, he would be able to complete force concentration, not just a ball. In other words, in that situation, he would be considered a real Dan stage mighty one. But because of the combination of cultivation, his qi, blood, force, and spirit revolved around his willpower or Jin Dan as the core, maintaining a balance. There was no way to truly condense them into a single point, or rather, there was no way to do so at the moment. At most, he could only achieve the level of a miniature version of Jin Dan. Lu Qing even suspected that if they were to condense into a single point during the rotation, something terrible would happen. Without the corresponding information, he could only take it one step at a time. After a few rounds of continuous training, Lu Qing was completely exhausted. He finished his morning homework and jogged home. In this youth tournament, he did not intend to use his golden core. He would fight with his own strength to polish his will and refine his martial arts. He also wanted to see where he could rank among the young martial artists in the province without cheating. Kuku still doesn't know that I've already grasped the meaning of withdraw. She doesn't know that I've reached the initial stage of force concentration. I'll give her a surprise when she watches the live broadcast of the match. In the last VIP class training session in July. With his hands behind his back, Lu Qing walked around the familiar students and guided them on how to exert their strength. At the end of the session, he clapped his hands and smiled. We'll meet again in August. Everyone, don't slack off. Maintain the state of training 3 times a week. Yao Ruiwei, especially you, if you really slack off, your weight will rebound. I'm not trying to scare you. This little fatty had more perseverance than he had expected. He had actually persevered all the way. His weight had already dropped by more than 10 kilograms, and his training load was no longer special. He had caught up with the other students. Hearing Lu Cheng's teasing, Yao Ruiwei scratched the back of his head and laughed. Sir Lu, if my weight rebounded by half a kilogram, it'll be my loss. They were all teenagers. After getting familiar with Lu Cheng, they felt that calling him Coach Lu was too distant. Someone took the lead and started calling him Sir on their own accord. Yao Ruiwei had not only lost weight, but also a little bit of inferiority. He gradually opened up his mind and displayed the vigor that a person of his age should have. After the laughter that followed his words, Wu Ting asked in high spirits, "What's the matter?" "Sir Lu, I heard that you're going to participate in this provincial youth tournament." "Yeah," Lu Cheng answered without much care. Wu Ting cheered. "My dad's going to take me to watch the match live." "I'll cheer for you." "I want to go too," Zhang Qiufan said enviously. She was not yet 13 and did not even have the capacity for civil conduct. Even if she wanted to go out, she could not buy a ticket. Wu Ting took good care of this little girl. She immediately suggested, "Why don't I ask your parents to let you come with us to Gaofen for a few days? See, you've exposed yourself. Are you going to play or cheer for me?" Lu Cheng shook his head with a smile. The students in the VIP class were all well off. After hearing Wu Ting's words, they began to talk among themselves. 1 or 2 of them wanted to join in the fun. Only Li Lei walked to Lu Cheng's side and said with admiration and doubt, "Sir Lu, I've had a few matches with other students in the VIP class these days. You won all of them?" Lu Cheng asked with a smile. Yes. But you haven't taught us any powerful moves. We just practiced the basic skills over and over again." Li Lei was very puzzled. Lu Cheng laughed. "If your basic skills are not solid enough, even the most powerful moves are 0. As long as you don't fight with students who have come to summer school several times, you won't have a big problem." Of course, it won't be a big problem. The students in the other VIP classes followed the principle of physical fitness. Their moves and styles were cool to satisfy the teenagers' desires. They just practiced the basic skills casually. When it came to a real fight, they were very weak. "Okay." Li Lei nodded thoughtfully. He made up his mind to practice with Sir Lu in August. After returning home in the afternoon, Lu Cheng began to pack his luggage. He was waiting for Jiang Fei's car to go to Gaofen. Fatty Jiang, Old Cheng, and Tao Xiaofei had nothing to do, so they wanted to watch the youth tournament and cheer for him on the spot. After he was done, he took a picture and sent it to Yan Zhika with a smile. "Embark on the journey. I'm so angry, but I still have to smile and cheer for you," Yan Zhika said with tears in her eyes. "I want to watch it live." Lu Cheng chuckled and typed a reply. "Even if you didn't go to Jiangnan, Empress Dowager probably wouldn't let you go to Gaofen to watch the tournament." "That's true," Yan Zhika said with both hands supporting her chin. "Then I'll try to master the inner practice of meteor force as soon as possible and come back early. Well, I'll find Sister Jingjing and go directly to Gaofen." "You can't be eliminated too early." Lu Cheng sent an emoji with a red scarf wrapped around his head. "I'll hold on until you come back. That should be the last few days of the tournament. Good boy, I'll give you candy when the time comes." Yan Zhika sent an emoji with a hook finger. "Okay, by the way, what's Sister Jingjing's supernatural ability? You kept forgetting to tell me." Lu Cheng asked casually. Yan Zhika replied with a serious expression, "Call me Coach Yan." Pfft. Lu Cheng couldn't help but smile. "Yes, please enlighten me, Coach Yan." Sister Jingjing's supernatural ability is to affect the surrounding air and create visual and auditory errors. During a battle, a wrong judgment is very dangerous. Yenjika didn't hesitate to sell her best friend out. They chatted for a while. Lu Qing heard the sound of the key opening the door. He stuck his head out and found that his parents had come back early. Behind them were Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Ma Shi. Oh no, I'll have to sleep on the sofa again. This was Lu Cheng's first thought. Then he realized that since he was going to Gaofen, it didn't matter if the room was occupied by the girls. Dad, Mom, why are you back so early? He asked in confusion. Qi Fang nagged, it's all because of your dad. A few days ago, he suddenly said that it's rare for you to participate in a competition in the province. We should go and see the scene. You and your father are like two peas in a pod. Why didn't you tell me in advance? I applied for annual leave and found someone to replace me. I almost couldn't win. Whim. Lu Jisheng laughed dryly. Dad and Mom seemed indifferent before, but in fact, they planned to go to Gaofen directly to cheer for me? Lu Qing felt warm in his heart. He asked with concern, have you booked a hotel? Cici and the others are going too? Yes. Brother Lu Qing, we're going to see your heroism live. Qi Yunfei answered exaggeratedly. Qi Fang continued, the hotel was booked. When your dad went to apply for annual leave, Fatty Guo was very happy. He said that his family would also go to Gaofen for a holiday and watch the competition. What a coincidence. He had an agreement with a 5-star hotel. Your dad had just finished the technical changes in the factory. He should have received a bonus. Well, he took 2 rooms as the bonus. She usually called Guamin Fatty Gua or Cheapskate Gua as long as there were no outsiders. Anyway, we have to pay for the accommodation in Gaofen. The money we save will be the bonus. Besides, it's our first time staying in a 5-star hotel. It's good to experience it. Lu Jisheng comforted her generously. Qi Fang rolled her eyes at him. It's more than 1,000 yuan a night. Don't you feel the pinch? Cheng, why don't we change rooms? You can stay there. No, the hotel I chose is close to the competition venue. It's quiet and convenient. Lu Qing refused his mother's kindness. He wanted to let his parents enjoy themselves. At this moment, his phone rang. It was from Jiang Fei. Cheng, we're outside the community. Have you packed up? Fatty Jiang lowered his voice and snickered. Old Qing knew that you were going to participate in the competition, so he persuaded Monitor and Chao Lele to go to Gaofen together. Great. Old Qing, you've grown up. I'll take Tao Xiaofei's car later. Lu Qing answered in surprise. Then he realized, no, my parents are going to Gaofen too. I'll take the train with them. Are you afraid that 2 cars won't fit you? Just return the tickets. Don't waste money. Jiang Fei suggested casually. Lu Qing counted the number of people and nodded. Okay, I'll tell them. Qi Fang was happy to have a free ride, and it was her son's classmate who offered it. She asked Ma Shi to return the tickets, took the luggage and went to the gate of the community. Dad, Mom, take Xiaofei's car. Lu Qing first greeted Tao Xiaofei and exchanged some pleasantries. Then he arranged for his parents, Qi Yunfei and Chen Xiaoxiao to sit in the BMW. He led Ma Shi to Jiang Fei's car and saw that Qing Qili was in the passenger seat, and Xiao Hailin and Chao Lele were in the back. Cheng, you can do it. The 2 female students cheered him on with a smile. They didn't believe Fatty Jiang's description of Lu Qing as invincible. They didn't have the curiosity to confirm it, so they just wanted to join in the fun. Thank you. Lu Qing answered politely. He turned to his cousin and said, Cici, you get in. After the arrangement, he suddenly realized a serious problem. He didn't count himself in the head count just now. The seats were full, and he hadn't gotten in yet. Cheng, how are you going? Jiang Fei looked at him in confusion. He couldn't ask them to get off, could he? Besides, he had to go on the highway. It was not good to overload. Lu Cheng was stunned for a few seconds. He said hesitantly, "I'll take the bus with the martial arts club, okay?" Jiang Fei waved his hand without hesitation and started the car. Tao Xiaofei followed closely behind. They were very confident in Lu Cheng's mobility. So straightforward. Watching the cheering group leave, the protagonist, who was cheered on, stayed in the same place, kissed by the hot sun, and his body was messy in the wind. Who was the main character? Wu Ting packed her luggage and followed her father to pick up Wei Renjie and his secretary. "Little girl, are you very happy?" Wei Renjie asked with a chuckle. This time, he would personally supervise the martial arts clubs in Xiushan and select the members who would participate in the special training based on their actual performance in the challenge tournament. The main player had been selected, and it was the one recommended by Club Master Chu Weikai. Wu Ting answered excitedly, "Because our coach will participate in the competition too." "Your coach?" Lu Cheng. "Not bad, not bad." Wei Renjie answered perfunctorily. With his status, of course, he didn't know the specific operation model of the martial arts club's summer class. He thought that the VIP class was the same as studying under a well-known mentor, and most of the time, the teaching assistant and others would act as his agent. Wu Qinggui was a little confused. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Lu Cheng first communicated with them through the phone, and then he finally saw the Gushan Martial Arts Club's bus. As soon as he got on the bus, Su Rongfei and the other inner disciples stood up one after another and greeted him respectfully. "Brother Lu." Everyone had seen the effect of his guidance during this time. Lu Cheng was too lazy to correct their greetings. He nodded to them one by one and came to Qin Rui's side. He smiled at Chu Weikai and Dai Linfeng behind him. "Club Master Chu, sorry to trouble you." "What's the trouble?" "In name, you are still a member of our martial arts club." Chu Weikai laughed. Lu Cheng didn't say much. He turned around and sat down, leaning against the backrest and stretching his body. At this moment, the door closed and the bus started to move. So many people had been waiting for so long, and it seemed that they were waiting for him alone. Target, the youth tournament. Chapter 248. The scenery outside the window flashed by quickly. The afternoon sun was scorching and glaring. The Gushan Martial Arts School disciples automatically opened the curtains to make the carriage dark and comfortable for sleeping. Lu Cheng basked in the little warmth through the curtains and enjoyed the breeze of the air conditioner above his head. He closed his eyes and recalled the various experiences since he started practicing martial arts, settling down all kinds of emotions. Until recently, he finally understood the true meaning of the words his master had said. Human body Big Dan meant that all the forces in the body were as one, forming a whole. Round meant that the force, qi, blood, and spirit were smooth and transparent. Bright meant that one had to understand why to fight and put it into practice. Step by step, one would have a firm will, a clear mind, and a bright future. Body refining was a certain limit of the body. Dan's stage began to involve one's will and spirit to break through the shackles. While he was reminiscing, he heard the inner disciples of the Gushan Martial Arts School talking to each other excitedly. "I hope we don't meet a strong opponent too early and try to enter the third round." Su Rongfei turned to Qin Rui and said. Qin Rui answered with anticipation and nervousness, "Among us, I'm afraid only senior brother Dai can enter the third round. Don't you want to?" Su Rongfei laughed. Qin Rui blurted out, "Why not? It's such a glorious thing. I want to enter the fourth round and get more attention." The purpose of the youth tournament was to encourage the young martial artists in the province to work hard. It was different from the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. Therefore, the first 3 rounds were all passed to the professionals so that the amateurs could fully perform and train each other. For the amateurs, this was also a way to show off to each other. "What? You were eliminated in the second round of the youth tournament?" "Oh, I was lucky enough to enter the fourth round and meet a professional 9th pin. When everyone was of the same rank, these things were one of the advantages to distinguish between the top and the bottom. Listening to these words and feeling the desire, Lu Qing, who was resting with his eyes closed, smiled slightly. For himself, his initial goal was to get more prize money and nothing else. Now that he had opened the door to the dance stage, there were some things he could think about. For a moment, he was a little complacent. Chu Weikai also had his eyes closed as he observed the excitement of this group of inner disciples. He thought to himself, it's good to be young, full of hope, full of vigor, full of youthful vigor. He mulled over these 4 words and suddenly felt as if he had overlooked something very important. Chu Weikai clenched his fists and opened his eyes. He looked sharply at Lu Qing, who was right in front of him. Perhaps it was because of their frequent contact, but she had actually turned a blind eye to the changes in his body. His qi and blood had originally been vigorous to the extreme, exuding a sense of valiance, sharpness, and vigor. With one look, one could tell that he was the kind of person who could fight very well. But now, he was calm and gentle, and his qi and blood were restrained. He had returned to his normal, ordinary self. Could it be? Chu Wei's pupils shrank. He couldn't believe his own guess. However, the changes in front of him clearly showed the answer. This was too exaggerated. He muttered to himself, feeling both shocked and relieved. The hotel booked by the Gushan Martial Arts School was called Tianshui Hotel. It was not far from Gaofen City's martial arts arena. The hotel was quiet and peaceful, and the price was not too expensive. It was only 400 yuan a night. Lu Qing also chose this hotel. He stayed in a room with a big bed on the 12th floor. He put down his luggage and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. He drew the curtain and looked at the arena that was shaped like a beetle. He suddenly felt relaxed and happy. He had just taken a picture of Yan Zhika and sent it to her when he received a call from Qin Rui. "Hey, Cheng, do you want to have dinner together? My master is going to spend a lot of money today to prepare a feast for everyone." Qin Rui laughed. Lu Qing stood by the window with one hand in his pocket. He smiled and said, "No, thanks. My parents and Zhang Fei are here too. I have to go with them. Look at my memory." Qin Rui slapped his forehead. "Have fun then." After hanging up the phone, Lu Qing immediately called Zhang Fei. "Hey, Fatty Jiang, I'll treat you to dinner later. Don't go anywhere." Fatty Jiang and the others were also staying in a good hotel because Tao Xiaofei had volunteered to pay for them. However, they were not staying in the same hotel as his parents. Zhang Fei was a little surprised. "Cheng, when did you become so polite and proactive? I thought you would only treat me if I shamelessly brought it up. Do you want to eat or not? Forget it if you don't want to eat. Don't talk nonsense." Lu Qing smiled grumpily. Tao Xiaofei and Fatty Jiang drove his parents and cousin to Gaofen to cheer him on. If he didn't treat them to a meal, he would feel guilty. Of course, it was all thanks to Ko Qian's influence that he could have such social awareness. Zhang Fei laughed and said, "Of course. You didn't treat us to the meal when you were dating Yan Zhika." He was so forgetful that he couldn't remember that sour feeling of loss. "Okay, I'll treat you together with Ko later." Lu Qing agreed readily, thinking that his girlfriend was coming to Gaofen. The sky was high and the Empress was far away. Zhang Fei nodded with satisfaction. "Then we'll pick you up and take you to your parents' place?" "No, I'll go there directly. You guys calculate the time and meet there." Lu Qing walked out while talking on the phone. He was wearing a short-sleeved white t-shirt, beige trousers, and vintage brown leather shoes. He looked very casual. On the way to Mingxi International Hotel, Ko Qian, who often came to Gaofen, told him what to eat. It was a Nanyan restaurant nearby. He arrived at the 5-star hotel before the evening rush hour. Because he had to swipe his card to enter the elevator, he waited for a while and got a free ride from others. Finally, he arrived at the 17th floor and knocked on the door of his parents' room. "What 5-star? It's no different from an ordinary hotel. The rooms are a little bigger and the things are a little newer. Qi Fang complained to her son, still worried about the bonus. Lu Qing stepped on the soft carpet and agreed with his mother. Exactly. The environment is cleaner. Can't we sleep anywhere? Dad, Mom, you guys clean up. Fatty Jiang and Tao Xiaofei are coming. I'm going to treat them to a meal. Lu Jisheng adjusted his glasses and said with satisfaction, you really should treat them to a meal. Cheng, you've really matured. After a while, the three girls finished tidying up. The six of them entered the elevator and went to the first floor. Ding! The elevator door opened on the first floor, and a few familiar faces appeared. Guomin was waiting for the elevator with his wife Wan Rongli, daughter Guo Huairou, son Guo Huaiyan, and bodyguard Jia Tong. Old Lu, the whole family is here? Guomin's eyes lit up when he recognized Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang. He smiled and greeted them. Wan Rongli and Guo Huairou raised their chins to show restraint. At this moment, their eyes suddenly froze when they saw Lu Qing standing next to Lu Jisheng with a gentle smile. In an instant, the words, he's here, and he's gone, flashed in the minds of Guo Huairou and the others, as well as the figure that floated away in front of them. Lu Qing smiled and nodded slightly as a form of greeting. Guomin and the others were surprised and puzzled. They subconsciously smiled and nodded back. It's really him. Why is he here? Lu Jisheng smiled reservedly. Mr. Guo, I thought you would only arrive tomorrow. This is my son, Lu Qing. These are my relatives' children. Come, greet Uncle Guo. Lu Qing immediately took a step forward and said with a slight smile, hello, Uncle Guo. Hello, hello. Guomin stared blankly at Lu Qing, who was dressed in casual clothes and wearing a clear and gentle smile. Uncle Guo, Guo Huairou and the others were also like clay puppets, blankly responding to Lu Qing's greeting. Mr. Guo, we have something to do, so we'll leave first. Lu Jisheng held the elevator button for them. Okay. Guomin still gave the same answer. Lu Qing didn't say anything. He put his hands in his pockets and leisurely followed his father to the side door, which was the closest way to Nanyan restaurant. Watching the family leave, Guomin suddenly took a breath and came back to life. Arriving at the side door, Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Ma Shi were immediately shocked by the noise and liveliness. The door was covered with a red carpet that stretched all the way to the stairs. There were cameras on both sides and men and women holding banners and signs. What are they doing? Qi Yunfei said to herself blankly. Lu Qing glanced at the scene and also didn't know what was going on. But at this moment, he saw a familiar figure coming in from the door. It should be said that he was familiar with him, but he definitely wasn't familiar with him. The newcomer was the top seed of this youth tournament, the 23-year-old professional 7th Pin Dan stage Zhang Zhutong. There were no talented fighters like Peng Liyun and Ren Li in this generation of Xing province, not even close. Zhang Zhutong had reached professional 7th Pin in the Dan stage at the age of 23, which meant that he could reach the inhuman stage. It wasn't impossible for him to reach the physical invulnerability stage. Zhang Zhutong was about the same height as Lu Qing. Wearing a white martial arts suit, he looked exceptionally handsome. His eyes were sharp and unfathomable. With a smile on his face, he looked around proudly. Walking on the red carpet with his glamorous female companion, he calmly withstood the flashes of the various guns and cannons. At this moment, a girl beside Qi Yunfei answered her question and said excitedly, banquet. Youth tournament banquet. Don't you know? No. Qi Yunfei shook her head blankly. The girl casually explained, isn't the youth tournament the day after tomorrow? The organizing committee is holding a banquet for the seeded fighters. Many experts and celebrities will come. As she spoke, she raised the banner and screamed, hey, hey. Zhang Zhutong. Qi Yunfei suddenly understood and glanced at her cousin. She wanted to say something but was too shy to do so. Chen Xiaoxiao asked confusedly, Brother Lu Qing, why didn't you get an invitation? Lu Qing watched Zhang Zhutong turn to the stairs and shook his head with a smile. Maybe I'm not qualified enough. Chapter 249. Lu Qing didn't complain about the lack of qualifications. He had already known that there would be 12 seeded players in this youth tournament. He had even watched a lot of promotional videos. That was why he felt familiar with Zhang Zhutong. The standard for seeded players was professional 7th pin, professional 9th pin, and several famous fighters of the professional 9th pin with supernatural abilities in the province. Not to mention whether the organizing committee would search the videos of every fighter of the professional 9th pin, Lu Cheng's recent performance was not enough for him to be selected. In other words, the minimum requirement for seeded players was professional 8th pin. Lu Cheng obviously didn't reach this level before the summer vacation. Of course, things were different now. He didn't feel that he was worse than some of the seeded players. Hearing his answer, Chen Xiaoxiao suddenly realized that she had asked a question that she shouldn't have. Of all things, she had touched a sore spot. Hurriedly, she said, "Brother Lu Cheng, you will definitely be qualified in the future." I should be qualified now. Lu Cheng thought. He didn't mind the little girl's unintentional question. He smiled and said, "I hope so. Let's go back to the main entrance. We can't get out of here." Because they didn't know the strength of their son, cousin, Qi Fang, Ma Shi, and the others forgot about the qualification for the banquet. They excitedly discussed the situation just now and followed Lu Qing back to the main entrance. They went to a Nanyun restaurant nearby. On the way, Lu Qing seized the time to ask little Ming, "Talker, are you there? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't ask me if I'm here." Kai Zhongming answered casually. "I'm treating some high school classmates, my parents, and my cousin. I feel that the atmosphere will be awkward. What should I do?" Lu Qing described the difficulty. Kai Zhongming chuckled. "Make fun of yourself. This is the only way out. You're the connection point between the two parties. Your parents will definitely be interested in your embarrassing moments in school. Your classmates can also get in on it, and vice versa." Lu Qing felt that it made sense at first. Then he was shocked. "My mom will tell all my embarrassing stories if they continue to talk like this. How can I show up in front of my classmates? What a bad idea." He didn't even have the nerve to tell Ku about some embarrassing things. Kai Zhongming threw his head back and laughed. "This is the only move I have left. Good luck to you." After gnashing his teeth for a while, Lu Qing consulted Coach Yen. After combining the opinions of both parties, he gradually came up with a draft on how to lead the conversation. He had already booked a private room in advance. After meeting Jiang Fei, Qiu Hailin, and the others outside the restaurant, they walked straight in and took their seats. He started the conversation with self-deprecating and started talking about their high school days. The atmosphere gradually became more comfortable and less restrained. When the dishes were about to be served, Lu Qing got up and walked out of the private room to the bathroom. When he was washing his hands outside, he saw Chao Lele looking for him. "Here." He waved his hand. As Chao Lele approached, she muttered, "There's something wrong with the design here. I can't see the logo over there." She and Lu Qing had been sitting at the same table for a long time, so they had a good relationship. Therefore, she spoke casually. Seeing that there was no one around, she asked curiously, "Lu Qing, I heard that you're working part-time as a coach in Gushan Martial Arts School?" According to Fatty Jiang, he was already a professional 9th pin. Then he must be very powerful in Shushan, right? "Yeah, why do you ask this all of a sudden?" Lu Qing asked with a puzzled smile. Chao Lele pouted and said self-deprecatingly, "No one cares about me when I'm studying in a university in another city. I've gained almost 5 kilograms this year. I think I need to work out to lose weight." Lu Qing took a closer look and found that this petite and dainty deskmate of his did indeed have a round face. He held back his laughter and didn't tease her about her weight. He answered seriously, "I don't know much about fitness, but Gushan Martial Arts School has a special fitness coach. Chow Lele was already mentally prepared to be teased and laughed at, but unexpectedly, Lu Qing didn't mention it at all. She looked at him in surprise and suddenly said with emotion, "Lu Qing, you've changed so much in just 1 year. I almost can't remember what you looked like in high school. Compared to you, other students, including me, seem to be still in the same place. I've just seen more of the world." Today, Lu Qing was tall and straight with a gentle temperament. He was confident, calm, and elegant in his speech and behavior. He didn't look like a freshman at all. "Should I say thank you for your compliment?" Lu Qing answered with a smile. "It's not a compliment, it's the truth." Chow Lele smiled reservedly and asked curiously, "I heard from Fatty Jiang that you have a girlfriend. She must be very outstanding, right? Only then would they be a good match." "Yes." Thinking of Coach Yan, Lu Qing smiled from the bottom of his heart and his eyes softened a little. Looking at Lu Qing like this, Chow Lele was envious and had the impulse to fall in love. She also wanted to have a boy who would show such expression and look when talking about her. Lu Qing didn't talk much with her. He waved his hand and turned back to the private room. Based on their long experience of desk mates, such an attitude was actually a little strange, but Lu Qing did it deliberately. First, after they went to universities in other cities, they didn't have much contact. Sun Yixing laughed and said, "It's my pleasure." Then he sighed and said, "If it weren't for this, no professional fighter would come to watch the first 3 rounds." In a dark bedroom, a beautiful woman woke up lazily. She found that there was no one beside her, and the temperature was cold. She put on her pajamas and walked to the window. She looked outside and saw Zhang Zhutong practicing martial arts in the garden. His upper body was naked, and his muscles were exposed from time to time. Drops of sweat trickled down his body. "Can't he stop for a day?" the beautiful woman complained. In a park, Xing Jingjing stood in a dark corner with her eyes closed, practicing one move after another. In a martial arts club, a young man with a shallow scar on his face stood quietly. His body was empty, as if he didn't exist. Beside a pond full of blooming lotus flowers, a young man with a few tufts of white hair grabbed the air and made crayfish in the mud fly up one by one. 3 days later, the morning sun was just right, shining brightly in the room. Lu Qing took a shower to wash away the traces of his morning exercise. He put on his white martial arts suit with black edges and stood by the window, looking down at the martial arts arena in the shape of a beetle. He slowly adjusted the buttons on his wrist. Today was the start of the 4th round. After adjusting his clothes, he turned around and picked up his phone. As expected, he saw a voice message from Yan Zheke, who was far away in Jiangnan. He put the phone to his ear and moved his thumb slightly. He heard her soft and clear voice like the first time, "Lu Qing, Lu Qing. Come on, Lu Qing." Compared to Yanling, the current encouragement was more tender and sweet. The corners of Lu Qing's mouth curled up. He listened to the message several times, then suddenly put away his phone. He grabbed the number plate on the table, opened the door, and strode out, basking in the sunshine. The number plate was wobbling in his hand. There was a unique pattern and a simple number on it, 18. Chapter 250. He walked out of the room and took the elevator to the lobby on the 1st floor. Lu Qing saw that the Gushan Martial Arts School had already gathered there. "Qing, do you want to go to the stadium together?" Qin Rui saw Lu Qing out of the corner of his eye and shouted immediately. In the first 3 rounds of the competition, Lu Qing, who had familiarized himself with the adjusted fighting style, had reached a higher level. Although he was still a long way from reaching amateur 9th pin, as an amateur, as long as he didn't meet the likes of Dai Linfeng or Zhou Jingyao, he could easily defeat an amateur 2nd pin fighter in the 1st round. In the 2nd round, he defeated an amateur 3rd pin fighter without any bloodshed. In the 3rd round, he met a strong opponent and won a hard battle. He became one of the 3 disciples of Gushan Martial Arts School who made it to the 4th round and was praised by the chairman Wei Renjie and the leader of the preliminaries, Sun Yixing. This made him feel refreshed and more confident. He was even more grateful to Lu Qing. "Yeah, let's go together. It's much more convenient to take the bus," Su Rongfei also said cheerfully. He and Dai Linfeng were the other 2 disciples who made it to the 4th round. This was partly due to luck, the opponents they met were not too strong, and partly due to Lu Cheng's serious guidance. As for the other inner disciples, as long as they received individual guidance, their results were more or less better than expected. Real knowledge comes from practice. They already admired this unassuming young fighter from the bottom of their hearts. The money in their pockets jumped with eagerness. Lu Qing looked at them and responded leisurely, "No need. There's no need. I'll run over and warm up." He waved his hand and strode out of the lobby. He ran rhythmically along the road to the stadium. Seeing him off, Su Rongfei sighed with emotion. "Why do I feel that Brother Lu is becoming more and more like a master? He can make it to the top 16 this time, right?" In his opinion, Lu Cheng was invincible among those below professional 8th pin. As long as he was lucky, he had a great chance to make it to the top 16. Qin Rui echoed, "I think it's no problem, unless he meets the 12 seeded fighters in advance." Then we can see Cheng in the role of call. The significance of seeded fighters was that they could avoid each other before the top 32. Behind them, Chu Weikai listened with a smile. He shook his head slightly and whispered to himself, "Top 16? Hey!" Stepping into the Gaofen Martial Arts Stadium, Lu Qing went straight to the big screen and looked at the rolling list of matchups. After waiting for a few minutes, he keenly saw his name because of his keen ears and eyes. Ring 6, Round 4. Number 18, Lu Qing, 19 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 29, Xiong Yu, 21 years old, professional 9th pin. Lu Qing clicked his tongue and sighed. In the 4th round, there were not many matches between professional 9th pin fighters, and he was lucky enough to get one. He took a closer look and realized that the fight between him and Xiong Yu was not on the broadcast list. That was because the top seed Zhang Zhutong was facing a challenge from a professional 9th pin fighter at the same time. Lu Qing lowered his head and typed quickly on the keyboard. He sent a match message to Ku and sent her a pitiful emoji. "Without Coach Yan's blessing, I got a professional 9th pin opponent in my first match." Ha 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 ha. Yan Jika did not hide her pride at all. "Wait for me to come back and give you the glory of your moral character." After typing this sentence, she said, "But why do I feel that Xiong Yu is the one with bad luck?" Facing Cheng, a freak who has gathered his martial arts will and mastered the core force of the Ice Sect, is not much different from challenging a seeded fighter in advance. Don't underestimate your opponent. Lu Qing replied with a serious expression. "Do you think it's easy for me to act pitiful? Okay, let me search for his information for you." Yan Jika combed her hair and quickly searched for his information. With a professional 9th pin fighter in a province, there must be relevant information on the internet. Lu Qing did not need to wait in line at the service desk. He went directly to Ring 6 and waited for Coach Yan's reply. In the process, he sent the match information to his parents and Jiang Fei. Number 18 Lu Qing. Xiong Yu looked at the big screen and read out his opponent's name softly. It was a very strange name. His body looked thin, but in fact, it was as heavy as a mountain. His face was round, and his facial features were close together, making him look very funny. He was a member of Gaofen's Jianxian Hall, and he came from the local famous Jinshan Martial Arts Club. His Wuji godly shattering fist was complete in form and meaning, and its essence was sufficient. Never heard of him. He should be a professional 9th pin fighter in another city. Just search for him. Xiong Yu's companion was a delicate girl with thin eyebrows. She was dressed like a regular white-collar worker, but her qi and blood were at their limit. She was in high spirits and looked fierce and strong. She and Xiong Yu were surrounded by several reserve members of Jianxian Hall. When they heard Sister Ying's order, they immediately took out their mobile phones and searched for information. Xiong was too lazy to do it himself since he had a follower to do it for him. He smiled and asked, "Sister Ing, your match is in the afternoon?" He was very respectful to Han Ing because her brother was one of the vice leaders of Jianxian Hall and the second seed of this youth tournament. He was a 25-year-old professional 7th pin fighter of the Dan stage, Han Jifei. Yes, an amateur first pin fighter. Han Ing answered casually. Brother Jifei's opponent seems to be an amateur first pin fighter as well. Xiong smiled with uncertainty. In this kind of voluntary challenge tournament, it was rare to give up. When encountering a strong opponent, one would enter the arena with the mentality of giving it a try. It was not that they thought they could win, but that they could brag when they went back. "I used to fight with a professional 7th pin fighter of the Dan stage." As for the specific number of moves, it was not for outsiders to know. While they were chatting, the reserve members looked more and more serious. One of them suddenly said, "Sister Ing, Brother Xiong, this Lu Cheng is not easy to deal with." He tried hard to think of a not too harsh description. Not easy to deal with? Xiong frowned and took the other's mobile phone. He looked at it again. Han Ing also moved her head closer. As they watched, the two of them paused and looked at each other, noticing the astonishment in each other's eyes. He is not only not easy to deal with. He is simply hard to deal with. Impossible to deal with. When did such a 19-year-old top professional 9th pin fighter appear in Xing province? He also has the supernatural ability of ice and fire, and has mastered the tremor punch and one of the core forces of the ice sect. Brother Xiong, you are so lucky. Han Ing sighed and said with a bitter smile. Xiong hissed, "This guy is ranked in Songcheng. Damn it, why did he come back to participate in the youth tournament?" After venting his anger, he took a few deep breaths and said, "Good. If I don't encounter a strong opponent, how can I squeeze out my potential? So what if he has the tremor punch and the core force of the ice sect? It's useless if he can't hit him. We are all professional 9th pin fighters. Is there an unbridgeable gap between us? If we don't fight, how can we know we can't win? I am a strong professional 9th pin fighter." Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang led Chen Xiaoxiao and Jiang Fei to the seats near the 6th ring when they saw the long spears and short cannons moving towards the center ring. After sitting down in 2 rows, the young people who were used to checking the internet took out their mobile phones and searched for the information of Xiongyu, Lu Cheng's opponent. "He looks so strong," Chao Lele blurted out after studying for a while. She had little contact with martial arts. This was the first time she saw a fight video of a strong professional 9th pin fighter. Naturally, she was shocked and worried about Lu Cheng. Is he strong? Qi Fang's ears were very sharp. Her heart was hanging in the air. She asked in a hurry. His son was so unlucky that he got the little king in the first round? If he was eliminated in the first round, he would be very sad and painful. He is very strong. Qiu Hailin watched several videos and took a deep breath. Her head was still exposed to the air. Tao Xiaofei heard their surprise and said disdainfully, "What's so good about this? You can search Brother Lu's videos. He is much stronger than this. Making a fuss over nothing. Yeah, compared to Brother Lu, he is just a so-so." Shi Yunfei and Chen Xiaoxiao said in unison. Really? Qiu Hailin and Chao Lele looked at each other and realized that they might have overlooked something very important. They quickly searched for the videos, regardless of the traffic. The more they watched, the brighter their eyes became. They couldn't believe that the powerful fighter in the videos was Lu Cheng, who was always smiling and polite. How could he be so strong all of a sudden? They couldn't tell at all. "Oh, is this Cheng?" Qi Fang stretched her head and looked at Chao Lele's phone. "I can't recognize him." In the words of the TV series, her son was very handsome. Jiang Fei couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his voice and said to Ching Chili, "Old Cheng, is this a realistic version of beating his mother until she can't recognize him?" Ching Chili ignored him and looked at Xiao Hailin and Chao Leilei's eyes and expressions worriedly. He was not afraid of anything, but he suddenly felt ashamed of his own inferiority. When there was a comparison, there would be hurt. Lu Jisheng quietly listened to their discussion and glanced at the videos on the phone. He vaguely understood one thing. Fatigua specially called yesterday to say that the bonus would still be the same. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, a little fairy posted a post. The third Youth Fighter Championship of Xing Province, 4th round, Lu Cheng vs Xiong Yu, professional 9th pin. Unparalleled Dragon King was the first to appear. Adjusting his sunglasses expression, he said, I knew Lu Cheng would participate in this competition. Hey, my girlish heart can't wait. Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling excitedly opened the official website of the Youth Fighter Championship and looked for the broadcast address. After more than 2 months without a competition, the forum, which had not yet stabilized its popularity, was much quieter. There were only 5 or 6 IDs left. Of course, Brahman was a persistent and persevering girl, and it was summer vacation. After a few seconds, she appeared and said, Speak. Who are you? Why do you know my idol is participating in this competition? A little fairy gave an irrelevant answer. Help when you see injustice. In front of the computer screen, Yenjika held her chin with one hand and smiled. She deliberately changed her ID because she didn't want people to think of Lu Cheng's girlfriend. Brahman was about to ask again when Eternal Nightfall sent a rolling on the ground and wailing expression. No broadcast. No broadcast. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Lying on the bed, Yan Shaoling sniffled and took out something to soothe her wounded heart. It was an admission notice, and the keywords were Songqing University School of Arts major in choreography. Looking at the 2 girls rolling on the ground and wailing, Yan Jika chuckled and thought to herself, you can't watch the broadcast, but I have a way. I'm prepared. She first replied to Lu Cheng's message and analyzed the characteristics of Xiong Yu's fighting style. Then she entered the Du Chivalry group and Gu Shuang, Shuang, are you at the scene? Gu Shuang was the first girl she had mentioned to Lu Cheng. She was the girl who met the scumbag. The scumbag spent Gu Shuang's private money and was two-timing. When Gu Shuang came to argue with him, he even tried to beat her, but he was beaten up by Yan Jika. Gu Shuang was chatting with Xing Jingjing on the high platform. She glanced at the screen from time to time. After seeing her friend's question, she smiled and replied, I'm at the scene. Cuckoo, you're too impatient, aren't you? The first game hasn't started yet. Hee, a girl in love. Even you, who used to be rational and cold, can't escape. Well, when have I ever been cold? Yen Jika replied with an emoji sitting straight. In my mind, you've always been cold and aloof. You seem to be polite, easy to approach, and good at interpersonal relationships. But in fact, you're only willing to accept a few friends. Right, little fairy? Gu Shuang joked with Lu Cheng's nickname. Yen Jika had shared this kind of fun with her girlfriends before, but she was teased by them from time to time. Gu Shuang liked this kind of Yen Jika. If anyone could become the girl's best friend, she wouldn't feel special at all. Yen Jika spat and didn't respond to the nickname. She emphasized, you said you'd broadcast it for me. Broadcast it with a mobile phone. I haven't forgotten. It's still early. Gu Shuang answered casually. She was about the same height as Yen Jika. Wearing a black dress, she had shoulder-length curly hair dyed chestnut and light makeup. Her eyebrows were delicate and filled with faint charm. But she didn't look like a 19-year-old girl. Instead, she looked more like a woman who had been working for several years. Beside her, Xing Jingjing glanced at her and sighed faintly. Ever since her first love met a scumbag, this best friend of hers who came from an extremely well-off family no longer believed in love. She changed from her usual innocent and pure self and wandered among men, enjoying being surrounded by them. However, she did not give her true feelings and was neither close nor distant. In her own words, she played in the mortal world and became a playboy princess. Men can touch, but women can't? Lu Qing didn't look down on Xiong Yu even though he was pretending to be pitiful. It happened every day in the world. If he was really defeated by Xiong Yu, he wouldn't be able to face his parents in the future. The lesson he learned before was that he couldn't be complacent. He carefully watched Yan Jika's analysis and the video provided by her and had a general understanding of the situation. At this time, since the first two matches were between a professional 9th pin and an amateur 2 and an amateur 1st pin, the third match was about to begin. Lu Qing put away his mobile phone, tidied up the wrists and trouser legs of his martial arts suit, left his seat and leisurely went to the 6th ring. As expected, he saw Xiong Yu and nodded slightly to him as a greeting. Xiong Yu and Haning also recognized Lu Qing, who left a deep impression on them in the video. They found that he was gentle and introverted. He stood there calmly, more like a spectator than a fighter. This recognition made them pale. According to the information, Lu Qing should be able to reach the peak of body refining soon and show his fierceness. Was he stagnant or had his strength improved beyond imagination? If Lu Qing had really touched the threshold of Dan's stage, he would be a dark horse in this youth tournament, considering the moves he had shown before. Lu Qing just smiled at their reaction and turned his attention to the arena, enjoying the rare amateur 1st pin versus amateur 1st pin in the 4th round. Sure enough, no fighter was a fool. Combined with the previous videos and information, it was not difficult to tell that he had made great progress. But my progress will be much greater than you think, a lot. Lu Qing thought leisurely and took out his mobile phone to chat with Yan Jika from time to time. 10 minutes later, the third match ended. The referee took a short break and shouted loudly, "The fourth match, Lu Qing versus Xiong Yu." Wu Ting had been watching the big screen of the 6th ring. Seeing Lu Qing enter the arena, she said to Wu Qinggui beside her, "Dad, I'm going to watch our coach's match. I'm going to cheer for him. Don't go anywhere." Wu Qinggui said subconsciously. I won't. Wu Ting shook her father's arm like a spoiled child. "I'm at the 6th ring. You can find me later." Wu Qinggui originally wanted to follow his daughter, but seeing Wei Renjie who was watching Sun Yixing's match attentively, he swallowed his words and ordered the bodyguards to follow them. Wu Ting cheered. She dragged her sandals and ran to the 6th ring. She cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, "You're so lucky. Come on, Sir Lu." Lu Qing was confronting Xiong Yu, waiting for the beginning of the conversation time. Suddenly he heard the shout. He turned around and responded with a smile. It seems that Zhang Qiufan and the others didn't make it. Only Wu Ting came. After shouting, Wu Ting took out her mobile phone and sent a message in the group. "Hurry up. Team up. Sir Lu's match is about to begin." Gu Shuang also pulled Xing Jingjing to the ring and found a good position to shoot. But she didn't start immediately. Instead, she was still chatting. "Cuckoo, your man looks quite handsome like this. If you ignore his face, bah, what do you mean by my man? Can't you speak properly?" Yan Jika scolded in her heart and urged, "How can you chat at such a critical moment? Hurry up. Broadcast it for me." "No hurry. What's so good about the conversation time?" Gu Shuang answered casually. "I'll broadcast it for you when the match starts. Now I have to interview you. Cuckoo, how are you feeling now? Are you very excited?" She teased her little fairy who rarely had the chance to flirt with her. Yan Jika sent an emoji with a doting smile. "How am I feeling now? I want to strangle you." This was the essence of what she learned from the conversation between Lu Qing and Kai Zhongming. She started to strangle him when she didn't agree with him. Standing in front of Lu Qing, Xiong Yu quickly went over his strategy. When almost everyone thought he would use guerrilla fighting to avoid the tremor punch and the core force of the ice sect, he would take the initiative to attack at the beginning of the match. Every move would be fatal and catch his opponent off guard. In order to achieve his goal, he had to instill the idea of guerrilla fighting in the conversation time. "The conversation time starts now," the referee announced calmly. Xiongyu immediately opened his mouth and said sincerely, I watched the video of your match before and found that I was really unlucky. I thought I would be able to defeat the small fish in the next 2 or 3 rounds and advance happily. Who knew I would meet you directly, the big shark? What an interesting way to put it. Lu Qing slowly adjusted his body state and replied with a smile, in a battle, there are hundreds of changes in an instant. It's not uncommon for the weak to defeat the strong. In the winning factor, strength was the main factor, but not the only factor. Xiongyu continued with his plan. He sighed and said, no matter if it's Tremor Punch or the core force of the Ice Sect, I'm very envious of them. If I can master any one of them, other than the few seated fighters in Gao Fun, I can do whatever I want. He emphasized that he was both envious and afraid of the Tremor Punch and the core force of the Ice Sect. He didn't dare to face them head-on so as to mislead Lu Qing. In such a long-winded conversation, the referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, begin. In the stands, Lu Jisheng and Chao Lele immediately sat up straight, their eyes focused and serious. Gu Shuang hurriedly clicked on the live video option. Wu Ting frowned and complained that her friends were too slow. None of them had arrived yet. As soon as the referee's voice fell, Xiong-Yu's fearful expression was replaced by a burst of momentum. He stomped on the ground and pounced at Lu Qing in a seemingly straight and curved manner. At the same time, a low, muffled sound came from within his body, connecting into a mountain-shaking sound, driving his right arm to punch out. Wuji Divine Shattering Punch. In the blink of an eye, Xiong-Yu was already in front of Lu Qing. He didn't panic. His abdominal muscles bulged, and his fascias on both sides pulled. His right hand popped out and his 5 fingers opened, piercing the wind and grabbing Xiong-Yu's wrist. At this moment, Xiong-Yu's back sprung. His right arm tightened, and his left foot kicked out without warning. It went straight for Lu Qing's ankle. It was deep, fast, accurate, and ruthless. The punch above was a trick to attract attention. The kick below was the essence. The killer move of Wuji Divine Shattering Punch, Earth Dragon Flip. However, as soon as he kicked, Lu Qing felt a tingling sensation in his ankle. He shifted his center of gravity first, stopped his move, and stepped aside like a ghost. Pseudo-Dan state, absolute reaction. Lu Qing took a step forward. Before Xiong-Yu could withdraw his foot, Lu Qing tightened his muscles and swung his left arm. With the roar of the thundercloud in his mind, he hammered his opponent. Bam! Xiong-Yu hurriedly blocked and was hit by the bomb. His body jumped, his qi and blood tumbled, and his muscles and fascias trembled. Just as he was about to use the internal training method to neutralize the shock, Lu Qing quickly adjusted and followed up with his right fist. In the visualization picture, a surging river suddenly froze over. Bam! The 2 fists collided and the cold current surged. Xiong-Yu froze as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Lu Qing's arm shook and cut across his neck. He pulled back and listened to the referee's announcement with a smile. Round 4, Lu Qing wins. Hee, it feels good to be a shark once in a while. At this moment, Gu Shuang had just finished the live broadcast and was facing the arena with a smile. Hearing the referee's announcement and seeing the 2 sides separated, her smile froze. She was stunned for a moment and then smiled at Yan Jika. It ended so quickly, I just started. Yan Jika was annoyed and amused at the same time. She said bitterly, let's break up. I told you to start the live broadcast when we were talking. Nearby, Wu Ting glanced at her companions regretfully. She sighed and muttered to herself, that's right. This guy is so weak. Chapter 251. In the arena, Xiong-Yu looked as if he had been trapped naked in a freezer for a long time. His hands and feet were stiff, his lips were pale, and his mind seemed to be frozen by the cold wave. While shivering, he could clearly hear his violent heartbeat. He felt a gush of hot blood flowing to every part of his body, alleviating the coldness that was about to seep into his bones. His abdomen began to wriggle, and his muscles tightened and compressed, creating a slight vibration and heat. Little by little, he recovered from the double effect. Phew. He finally moved his hands and feet and exhaled a breath of white air. In the martial arts arena with a constant temperature, he actually exhaled a breath of white air that made people feel cold. Thank you. Lu Qing smiled and saluted. Xiong Yu didn't feel angry after his failure. He returned the salute with a wry smile. I really didn't stand a chance. Facing him was like facing an 8th pin Dan stage fighter. His failure seemed to be justified. After finishing his words, he turned around and walked down the arena. Under the sympathetic gazes of the preparatory members of Wise Man Hall, he returned to Han Ying's side. Without waiting for him to speak, Han Ying said thoughtfully, "Did you notice that the connection between his tremor punch and ice sect core force is very smooth and natural? There are no loopholes." Before this, they could see from the video that whether it was the tremor punch or ice sect core force, Lu Cheng's preparation time was a little too long, and the connection problem was obvious. However, in the 2 or 3 moves just now, although Lu Cheng still had some preparation time, he was quite close to the reasonable range of normal moves. His connection was tight and left no openings. In terms of battle, this was considered a huge improvement. Yes. Xiong Yu confirmed it, but he did not mention it again. His round face showed a bit of bewilderment. Sister Ing, don't you think so? Just as my earthworm flip kicked out, he dodged in advance. If it were other professional 9th pin fighters, they might not understand what Xiong Yu was trying to say. However, Han Ying had a 7th pin Dan stage brother, so she was familiar with such things. She was shocked and blurted out, "Absolute reaction?" "Yes." Xiong Yu nodded solemnly. Han Ying's face darkened. She paced back and forth and gritted her teeth. "I'm going to find my brother and tell him, this was probably a dark horse that had the qualifications to become a seeded player. If his elder brother encountered it and was careless, he might be left with some injuries that would affect his chances of winning the championship later on. Of course, this kind of thing had to be kept a secret. If Zhang Zhutong and the others could suffer a loss because of this, that would be great." When the referee announced the result of the competition, Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Ma Shi stood up and cheered, ignoring the gazes of others. "Brother Lu Cheng is the best." This was Qi Yunfei's suggestion. They had rehearsed this for a long time. Tao Xiaofei jumped up and waved his fist in the air. He looked at Chao Lele and Xiao Hailin with pride and said, "What do you think? I told you, Brother Lu is much better than him." Most of the time, the visual estimation of strength and the intuitive feeling of power really required comparison and contrast. Just by looking at battle videos, due to the lack of understanding of the enemy, one would only have a vague sense of the enemy's location, such as crushing bricks and jumping a few meters. Chao Lele finally realized the true strength of her old deskmate when she saw the martial artist she thought to be very powerful being defeated so easily. She opened her eyes wide and replied with excitement and surprise, "Yes. He really is young Master Lu." Unexpectedly, Lu Cheng's joke to liven up the atmosphere turned out to be true. The deskmate she used to be so familiar with seemed to be so unfamiliar that she could only look at him from afar. Young Master Lu. At this time, she saw Lu Cheng leave the arena and asked curiously, "How powerful is Lu Cheng now?" "How do you want me to answer this question? I can't describe it in detail." Jiang Fei scratched his head and said awkwardly. Chao Lele thought for a while and said, Then tell me, which rank can Lu Cheng reach in this youth tournament?" Jiang Fei thought carefully and answered proudly, "Top 32 for sure. If he is lucky, he may even reach the top 16. If he is lucky, he may reach the top 16. Chao Lele repeated in a low voice. Among the martial artists under the age of 26 in the province, Lu Cheng could at least rank in the top 32. The whole province. Qi Fang was enjoying the show. She turned to Lu Jisheng and said, "Did you hear that? Our son can rank in the top 16 in the province." Yes. Lu Jisheng replied with a smile. Let's hope Cheng is lucky. Cheng Chili was paying attention to Qiu Hailin's reaction. He found that she was not as shocked and excited as Chao Lele and the others, but showed a thoughtful expression. He lowered his voice and asked, "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" Lu Cheng had consulted Talker about his pursuit of Qiu Hailin. Unfortunately, Little Ming was not omnipotent and knew nothing about the matching of similar characters. He only vaguely suggested that Lu Cheng should take the path of stimulating the brilliance of motherhood and improve himself. Qiu Hailin pulled back her hair and stubbornly showed her forehead. "I just thought of a senior sister. She looks ordinary, but when she is in the arena, she is very powerful, just like Cheng." "Senior sister? What's her name?" Cheng Chili asked casually. Qiu Hailin was busy in the student union and had more or less contact with martial arts competitions. She smiled in a low voice. "Renli, I didn't expect that he would beat Xiong Yu in 2 or 3 moves." Gu Shuang was analyzing her feelings and complaining about being wronged. "Isn't that guy very powerful? Why is he just an empty shell?" Beside her, Xing Jingjing replied with a cold expression, "That's right. Lu Cheng is more powerful." "More powerful? How much more powerful?" Gu Shuang was at a loss for a moment. A fight between 2 fighters of the professional 9th pin started unnoticed and ended peacefully. Except for a few fighters from the Wise Martial Arts Hall, no one knew about the existence of Lu Cheng, a top 9th pin fighter. In the 4th round of the competition, the remaining 3 disciples of Gushan Martial Arts School were no longer able to advance as they were defeated by professional 9th pin fighters one after another. But for them, it was already very good. Other martial arts schools either only had 1 disciple or none of them entered the 3rd round. In the 5th round of the competition, Lu Cheng drew an amateur first-level fighter who had once had good luck. He also finished the battle with only 2 moves, which did not attract any more attention. After 5 rounds, there were 79 fighters left, and the number of non-professional fighters was less than 0. From this stage onwards, a double elimination system of 2 matches a day would be implemented. In other words, every fighter would draw 2 opponents each day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Whoever lost 2 matches first would be eliminated. The competition would continue until there were only 32 fighters left, which was the number of people in the bonus circle. On the first day, as usual, Lu Cheng drew 2 fighters of the professional 9th pin and defeated them in an unremarkable manner. He didn't enter the broadcast list, nor did he win the applause of the audience due to the lack of excitement and entertainment value. It was as if he had just gone through the motions. On the 2nd day of the double elimination, he finished his morning exercise, put on the navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit, and slowly ran to the stadium. After yesterday's match, there were only 47 contestants left. Under the rule that the top 32 seeded contestants were not allowed to fight each other, and under the premise that the opponents he had encountered before would definitely avoid him, Lu Cheng felt that he had a good chance of fighting a strong opponent. He entered the stadium and stopped in front of the big screen. Squeezing with the audience, he looked up and saw his name without much effort. Second ring, second match, number 9 seeded fighter, Lu Xuanjun, 23 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 18 seeded fighter, Lu Cheng, 19 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 9 seeded fighter, Lu Xuanjun. Lu Cheng's image appeared in his mind. A young man with white hair. He was a famous fighter of the professional 9th pin in the province, and his supernatural ability was psychokinesis. From the fact that he was a seeded contestant and ranked 9th, it was obvious that his combat strength was extraordinary. My moral quality. Lu Cheng sighed with a smile. Did he really use all his luck on Cuckoo? Compared to a professional 9th pin fighter with a supernatural ability, I'd rather fight against an 8th pin fighter of the Dan stage. This did not mean that the former was better than the latter. It was just that he had rich experience in challenging 8th pin fighters, but had no experience in fighting against supernatural ability fighters. Monkey from Wenxing School was mainly a fighter with supernatural ability as a supplement, so he could be treated as a fighter in a fight. While recalling the images of Lu Xuanjun in the promotional video, He took out his phone and sent a message to Yenjika. Number 9 seated fighter. As he sent out these 4 words, Lu Cheng's mood gradually calmed down, and his fighting spirit rose bit by bit. Interesting. It must be interesting to fight against a powerful supernatural ability fighter. Especially in the double elimination, I won't have to go home after one loss. Of course, I don't want to lose no matter what. Chapter 252. A few seconds later, Yenjika's reply came as scheduled. She replied with a crying face emoji. Lu Xuanjun? Yeah. Why do you look like that? Lu Cheng took his phone and walked away from the screen towards the second arena. In the third round of double elimination, there were only 4 arenas left in the arena. Yenjika replied kindly, I know this guy. His supernatural ability is very, very, very troublesome. Even Dan's stage mighty ones have a headache. Very troublesome? Even Dan's stage mighty ones have a headache? Lu Cheng's mind suddenly flashed with images from the promotional video. He took a deep breath and typed, what's so troublesome? He had spent the past few days quietly comprehending the meaning of withdraw and practicing his martial arts. He wanted to enter Dan's stage as soon as possible, so he didn't study the videos of the seeded players in advance. Only when the results of the draw were out and he had a specific opponent would he seriously analyze his opponent. The strength of his psychokinesis is actually not that strong. He can only pick up light things out of thin air. Yenjika crossed her fingers and held her chin. If he uses it to fight with toughness, it won't have a good effect on a professional 9th pin fighter. But there are too many delicate and fragile parts of the human body, for example, the eyes? Lu Cheng frowned. Yes, yes. Although his psychokinesis can't directly gouge out his opponent's eyes or blind him, it's enough to affect his opponent and make him blind for a period of time. Sigh, in the arena, this kind of battle can easily cause injuries. Yenjika sighed with emotion again with an emoji of crying. The strength of supernatural ability was not only dependent on its type, but also its strength and development. Lu Cheng's supernatural ability of ice and fire sounded good, but its strength was too low. It could only be used to light a cigarette and make a portable air conditioner. It was not powerful at all. Lu Xuanjun's psychokinesis, on the other hand, had been improved step by step from its weak state to its current level. It could obviously affect the development of the battle and the result of the battle. In the battle with strange supernatural abilities, the referees were usually experienced supernatural ability users. That way, they could prevent the situation from worsening. But because of the existence of instantaneous attacks, unless the referees had the ability of prophecy, there was no way to make it flawless. Of course, maliciously injuring the opponent would be punished by the law. Lu Cheng could already imagine the horrifying effect of psychokinesis attacking the eyes from a distance. Stunned expression, said, this fighting style is a bit like bullying, that's not all. Yenjika replied. I've seen him pinch his opponent's private part from a distance. F***ck. Lu Cheng felt a chill in his crotch and couldn't help but curse. With the strength of Lu Xuanjun's psychokinesis, although it was impossible to cause an explosion, the pain in the balls was not a joke. It was a real pain in the balls. How could they fight like this? In that instant, for the sake of Ku, for the sake of the happiness of the rest of his life, he had the impulse to give up this competition. Seeing Lu Cheng's intense reaction, Yenjika giggled. Luckily, he's still a gentleman. He wouldn't attack a girl's breasts when he's fighting, and he wouldn't do that to a guy unless he had no other choice. Fortunately, it was a single elimination tournament. If he had encountered such an opponent in a life and death battle, that would be a real pain in the ass. Lu Cheng replied with an emoji of wiping cold sweat. After scaring her boyfriend, Yenjika snickered. Don't be afraid, young man. Charge forward bravely. I've summarized a few points about his supernatural ability. First, it doesn't have any penetrative power. It's more like an invisible hand that can block. Second, its range is limited. It has almost no effect beyond 15 meters. The closer it is, the stronger the psychokinesis becomes. Third, his use of psychokinesis is like your supernatural ability of a lighter. It requires a trigger action, and there's a possibility of prediction. In fact, without the trigger action, a Dan stage mighty one's absolute reaction can also detect it. However, psychokinesis is instantaneous, and the speed of transmission is said to be close to the speed of light. If there's no trigger action, even if you can sense it, you can't avoid it. Lu Cheng was stunned. After a long time, he said, "Ku, how do you know so much?" "Humph, I've studied all the videos of the 12 seated players." Yenjika raised her head and replied with an emoji of arrogance. She didn't need to participate in the competition, so why did she put in so much effort? Lu Cheng felt warm in his heart. "Ku, you're so nice." Yenjika blushed at his sudden words. A smile appeared on her face as she hurriedly reprimanded him. "Call me Coach Yen." "Yes, yes, yes. Coach Yen is the best." Lu Cheng laughed and waved to his parents and Fatty Jiang. He found a place to sit down and watched the videos that Yenjika had selected. He communicated with her nervously and hurriedly. Lu Xuanjin sat cross-legged in the small, empty room of the seated players' lounge. It was dark all around and there was no sound. In this deathly silent environment, the external sensations gradually faded. He could more clearly grasp his psychokinesis and see the corresponding changes in his body. The only fuzzy part was his brain. Because his psychokinesis was too strong, it affected his spirit. Until now, he had not been able to conceal spirit and qi and enter meditation. He could only rely on this extreme environment to practice. This was why he couldn't enter the Dan stage. Most of the time, others saw him as a supernatural ability user, not a fighter. Suddenly, he vaguely sensed something. He opened his eyes, stood up, and walked to the entrance. He opened the 2 doors that separated the space. Outside the door, a slender woman was approaching. When she saw Lu Xuanjin, she smiled and said, "Mr. Lu, what a coincidence. Your opponent is out. Number 18, Lu Cheng." Number 18, Lu Cheng. Lu Xuanjin read the name silently. He found it strange, but his expression didn't change at all. He smiled politely and said, "Thank you. I have to check his information." "Don't bother. I've collected it for you, including the highlights of his matches in the past few days," the slender woman said dutifully. Many fighters had not fought in public for 1 or 2 months in order to prepare for the youth tournament. All the previous videos could only be used as a reference and couldn't be used to accurately judge the specific strength of the opponent. After all, people grow. Only by combining the battles in the past few days could one have a complete understanding of the opponent. "Thank you," Lu Xuanjin said politely and sat in front of the computer. He took the USB flash drive from the woman and began to watch from the beginning. As he watched, his expression gradually became serious. When he saw Lu Cheng's recent matches, he couldn't hide the seriousness on his face. "Crushing," he muttered to himself and made an evaluation. Although he still couldn't rely on this kind of intense battle to figure out the other party's background, it was obvious that in just a short 2 months, he had made a jaw-dropping improvement. Compared to the top geniuses like Peng Liyun and Ren Li, this kind of growth speed couldn't be inferior at all. Fortunately, if the youth tournament was delayed 1 year later, the number 1 seed would have been replaced. Lu Xuanjin had made a name for himself with his supernatural ability, but he didn't become arrogant because he had suffered losses before. He knew very well that supernatural ability users were indeed strong in many aspects, but they were also weak in many aspects. Unlike Dan stage fighters, supernatural ability users were the type that was most likely to fail miserably. Of course, if one's supernatural ability reached a higher level, it would be a different story. In the stands, Lu Cheng's mother, Qi Fang, asked puzzledly, "What does the number 9 seed mean?" Tao Xiaofei was a little worried and didn't have the mood to answer. Only Fatty Jiang was still cheerful and said, "Auntie, the seeded fighters are those who are most likely to win this tournament. The smaller the number, the stronger the strength, and the greater the hope. He tried to explain in a way that was easy for middle-aged and old people to understand. So this Lu Xuanjun is the 9th strongest fighter in the youth tournament? Qi Fang asked in surprise, thinking of the 18 heroes of Sui and Tang dynasties. In the whole province, it was amazing to be in the top 10 of all the fighters under the age of 26. Jiang Fei thought for a while and said, "That's right, then, does Qing have a high chance of winning?" Qi Fang asked worriedly with a simple comparison view, which was what Qiao Lele and Qi Yunfei were thinking. Isn't this match very dangerous? Would he lose? Feeling that he was the focus of attention, Jiang Fei twisted his body uncomfortably and coughed twice. It's okay if he loses. This is a double elimination system, which means he has to lose 2 rounds to be eliminated. Qing still has a high chance of entering the top 32. He couldn't possibly draw another seeded fighter in the next round, right? Well. Qi Fang pulled Lu Jisheng's sleeve and whispered, "You know how to surf the internet, right? Let's see what Lu Xuanjun is like." Okay. Lu Jisheng had this idea a long time ago. Under the guidance of Qi Yunfei, he searched step by step. Qiu Hailin and Qiao Lele also began to do the same. However, the more they watched Lu Xuanjun's battle video, the more silent they became. The more they watched, the more frightened they became. Ahahaha, finally there's a broadcast this time. Yan Shaoling refreshed the list and excitedly posted, "It's against the 9th seeded fighter. Ho ho ho, it's against the 9th seeded fighter." Unparalleled Dragon King had sharp eyes. "You don't know what a seeded fighter is, right?" "Huh, how would I know?" Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling didn't hide it. Unparalleled Dragon King briefly explained the meaning of a seeded fighter. In the end, he said, "If it's the 8th or 10th seeded fighter, I think Lu Qing will win." After more than 2 months, with his speed of improvement, he should have touched the threshold of the Dan stage. Plus, he is more familiar with Tremor Punch and Ice Sect Force, and he has more experience. It's not impossible for him to beat a normal 8th pin fighter of the Dan stage. But this Lu Xuanjun's supernatural ability is very difficult to deal with. It's his first time encountering him. Yan Shaoling was silent for a moment before replying, "Anyway, I think my Lu Qing will win." A woman's sixth sense. "I believe it too, I have it too." Brahman popped up. Unparalleled Dragon King said, "Why are you 2 little brats calling me a woman? I'm an adult." Yan Shaoling followed suit. "But Little Nightfall, your picture and your voice betrayed you. You're just a primary school kid." Brahman quickly changed the topic. It seemed that they wouldn't be able to go back until the competition started. After watching the video, Lu Qing had a rudimentary understanding of Lu Xuanjun's fighting style. He looked at the second arena. The winner of the first round was clear and would soon be over. The broadcasting equipment had been set up for the second round. It's about to start. Lu Qing sent a message to Yan Zhika. Then he stood up and stretched his arms and legs. The fighting style of a supernatural ability user was indeed different from that of a normal fighter. He couldn't rely on his experience to master it. Yan Zhika quickly replied with a voice message, "Qing, come on." Lu Qing smiled and stretched his neck. He quickly typed, "How can I cheer for such a powerful opponent in such an ordinary way?" Then, how about singing? Yan Zhika gritted her teeth and asked hesitantly. "We've been together for so long, shouldn't we change the way we cheer for each other?" Lu Qing teased the girl to ease his mood. "For example, darling, no. Rogue. Cheeky." Yan Zhika typed quickly. Her face was red with embarrassment and annoyance. How embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Qing is such a jerk. At this moment, a few rows above him, Zhang Zhutong stood leisurely with his hands in his pockets. Beside him was a beautiful female companion. "Do you want to watch the next round?" His female companion asked, bored. Zhang Zhutong laughed in a low voice. Yes, Lu Xuanjun hasn't participated in any competition for almost 3 months. His previous opponents were not strong, so no one could see how much his supernatural ability has improved. His opponent this round is not weak, so it should be able to make him reveal something. Look, Han Jifei, Qiu Lin, and the others are also here. He leisurely waved to Han Jifei and the others not far away, as if he were the owner of this place. Han Jifei ignored his gesture, touched the scar on his face, and asked Han Ning and Xiong Yu, "Is this Lu Cheng?" "Yes." Han Ning nodded heavily. Okay. Sing a song to cheer for me." After teasing Yan Zhika for a while, Lu Cheng still couldn't make her call him darling, but he was still in a good mood. In order to not be upset or painful later and still have this kind of happiness, I can't take it lightly. Then let's do our best. He stepped forward and walked to the second arena. In less than 2 minutes, he heard the referee say, "The second round, Lu Xuanjun versus Lu Cheng." Lu Cheng took out his phone and was about to hand it to the competition supervisor when he saw a message. "Kusong." He unlocked the phone with a smile, put the phone to his ear, and clicked on the voice message. "Kiss, kiss. Come on." Yan Zhika's voice trembled with shyness and nervousness. As soon as she sent the message, she buried her face in the pillow. Cheng is such a bad guy. Kiss. Are you a customer service officer on Taobao? Lu Cheng chuckled. His heart was filled with strength. This is what I want to protect. Yaya, Sir Lu is on the stage. Wu Ting looked at the second arena and cheered. Wei Renjie didn't hear what she was shouting, but now there were only 4 arenas left. He subconsciously looked over and easily found a familiar figure standing there. Lu Cheng. How many rounds has it been? He hasn't been eliminated yet? Chapter 253. Although Wei Renjie was a layman in martial arts, he was by no means a fool since he had made it to where he was today. Besides, he had learned a lot in the past 6 months. Seeing Lu Cheng still standing in the arena on the second day of the double elimination competition, he instinctively made a judgment. This kid is not simple. He is at least a professional 9th pin fighter, and not an ordinary one. Not to mention the first 5 rounds of matches, just looking at the results of the first day of double elimination, one could come to this conclusion. Yesterday morning, there were 39 matches, and 39 losers. In the afternoon, there were also 39 matches, and 32 of the 39 losers accumulated to the second round and were eliminated. What did this mean? It meant that those without real skills had been completely squeezed out. Wei Renjie's mouth was half open, and his mind was full of thoughts. Finally, he put away his slightly lost expression and ordered in a low voice, "Goldie, get me the information on Lu Cheng. Quickly, as soon as possible." Before Goldie could do anything, Wu Qinggui had already taken out his mobile phone, found the information in his collection, and handed it over. After finding out from his daughter that their new coach was unexpectedly strong, as a qualified father, he had already investigated Lu Cheng's situation thoroughly. However, he didn't dare to take the initiative to ask because he couldn't figure out Wei Renjie's attitude. At this moment, the information he collected finally came in handy. Wei Renjie took it and skimmed through it quickly. The more he read, the more shocked he became. When he read the words, "less than a year of martial arts practice," he couldn't help but pull at the knot of his tie. His neck was strangled and he seemed to have difficulty breathing. Beside him, Wu Tingkai didn't notice his reaction. She joined Zhang Qiufan and other friends and sat side by side in the seats closest to the second arena. Next to them were Xing Jingjing and Gu Shuang. In the broadcasting room of Xing Province Satellite TV, the host asked the guest commentator, "Teacher Yu, I've read Lu Cheng's profile and found that this young man is extraordinary. He started practicing martial arts as soon as he entered university, and in less than a year, he's already at the top of the professional 9th pin. His future is limitless. He's a rising martial arts star in our province. How likely do you think he is to defeat Lu Xuanjun?" Yu Hong was the senior vice principal of the police academy in Xing province. He was in the Dan stage at the inhuman level. He laughed and said, "It's hard to say. For now, I can't see how much progress this kid has made compared to 2 months ago. Lu Xuanzhen's supernatural ability is very interesting. If you haven't reached the Dan stage, you won't be able to practice absolute reaction. If you encounter him, you'll basically have no chance. Even if you're in the 8th pin Dan stage, you'll be in danger if you make a mistake." After watching the highlights of Lu Cheng's previous matches, he had seen more hidden things than Lu Xuanzhen, Han Ning, and Xiong Yu. It was not easy for him to make a judgment, so he decided to analyze Lu Xuanzhen's supernatural ability perfunctorily. Yan Jika's clear voice echoed in his ears. Lu Qing walked into the ring and stood opposite Lu Xuanzhen. His fighting will accumulated in his heart and his spirit penetrated his body. The referee did not waste any time and announced in a clear voice, "Conversation time starts now." Lu Qing looked at the teenager and smiled slightly. "To be honest, this is the first time I've fought with a fighter with supernatural ability. I'm a little nervous." These were his heartfelt words, but not all of them. He wanted to create an image to paralyze Lu Xuanzhen and create opportunities for himself to use his next moves. His strategy was to beat the slow with speed. To attack the weak with one's strong points. No matter how strong Lu Xuanzhen's psychokinesis was, it showed no signs of strengthening his body. In other words, his reaction, speed and agility were all at the level of a normal professional 9th pin fighter. Once he couldn't keep up with his own movements, how effective could his psychokinesis be? A weapon that couldn't hit the enemy was useless no matter how strong it was. The only problem was that under normal circumstances, a professional 9th pin fighter should be able to keep up with the movements of an 8th pin fighter in the Dan stage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to challenge Wei Xingtian and Zhou Jingquan. Lu Xuanzhen had a pair of deep eyes that seemed to be able to drown others. He smiled back. "This is also the first time I've met a professional 9th pin fighter who has mastered Tremor Punch and the core force of the Ice Sect. No, you should be quite close to the Dan stage, so I won't hold back." Not holding back meant that he would not deliberately avoid the sensitive parts. Hearing this, Lu Qing felt a chill between his legs again. He didn't know if Lu Xuanzhen was bluffing to make him unable to use his full strength, or if he really wanted to fight to the death. He took a breath and all kinds of emotions began to settle down. His will was strong and the source of his strength was awakened. Since this was the case, let's go all out. The two of them, each with their own thoughts, stopped talking and let the time pass by. The referee raised his right hand and waved it down under the nervous gazes of Qi Fang, Chao Lele, and the others. "Begin." While the voice was still echoing, Lu Cheng's qi, blood, force, spirit and other physical and non-physical senses all shrank and condensed into a Dan that was bigger than a dot and smaller than a thumb. Force concentration and Dan stage burst out. He didn't hold back at the beginning. Boom! The mass of essence, qi, spirit, and will expanded rapidly and exploded violently. The surrounding stars were flung out and turned into a spiral force that surged violently into Lu Cheng's feet. Bam! The green bricks exploded. Lu Cheng was like a fierce eagle. Using distance reduction, he closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye and pounced on Lu Xuanzhen. Facing such an explosive attack, Lu Xuanzhen didn't panic. He stretched out his hands and pulled backward. As soon as Lu Cheng sensed it, he had discovered that there was an invisible rope tied around his wrists, pulling him forward. Under normal circumstances, this kind of pull wouldn't affect him at all, but at this moment, he was pouncing forward ferociously. 4 ounces could lift 1,000 pounds. He was like a boulder that had been pried open and lost his balance. He couldn't stop and staggered forward. Lu Xuanzhen dodged sideways. His eyes were dark and shimmering. His right hand moved quickly. Lu Cheng was about to use mercurial balance to regain his balance when his left foot tripped over an invisible obstacle. His rhythm was completely disrupted and he was on the verge of falling. This time, it wasn't a direct attack. He couldn't use absolute reaction. Lu Xuanzhen's expression didn't change. He clenched his hands into fists and pounded inward. He seized the opportunity to attack Lu Cheng's temples with psychokinesis. These were the vital points of the human body. Even if his psychokinesis wasn't enough, it was enough to make his opponent dizzy and lose his ability temporarily. At this moment, Lu Cheng took a deep breath. All the qi, blood and force in his body condensed at his dantian. This allowed him to stand steadily with his waist lowered and no longer staggered. As soon as he steadied himself, he felt the sharp pain in his temples. He shrunk his neck like a turtle retracting its head. Bam! Lu Cheng, who reacted in time, still couldn't completely avoid the attack. The invisible fist hit the edge of his skull. For a moment, he saw stars and felt annoyed. He had underestimated Lu Xuanzhen. In the stands, Zhang Zhutong muttered to himself in surprise, "That's right. He hasn't completely entered the dance stage yet and he can make 2 consecutive bursts. Is this the so-called abnormal physical strength?" Ah. His female companion was confused. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Zhang Zhutong put away his surprise and smiled solemnly. "Nothing. I didn't expect Lu Xuanzhen's supernatural ability to improve so much. He didn't even need to touch his body to become an invisible barrier." To him, this was much more threatening than Lu Cheng's 2 consecutive bursts. Han Zhifei touched the scar on his face again. He said to Han Ning and Xiong Yu thoughtfully, "He's really something. This should be Lu Cheng's limit. Today's match will be very difficult for him." Xiong Yu sighed. In the arena, the qi, blood and force in Lu Cheng's dantian exploded again and gushed out. Bang! He was like a detonated cannonball, shooting toward Lu Xuanzhen. No, not where Lu Xuanzhen was standing, but a few meters away from him. Lu Xuanzhen couldn't keep up with Lu Cheng's explosive attack. When Lu Cheng landed, he raised his hands and tried to gouge his opponent's eyes. At this moment, Lu Cheng's explosive strength and surging qi and blood contracted again. He made another force concentration. Triple bursts. Xiong Yu opened his mouth slightly. Boom! Lu Cheng took advantage of the midway turnaround and the more turbulent outburst to change his direction, making Lu Xuanzhen's psychokinesis miss. It wasn't because he predicted his opponent's attack, but because he had planned to do so. Relying on the explosive strength of the pseudo-Dan stage, he was going to fight like never before. Only in this way could Lu Xuanzhen, a professional 9th pin fighter, not be able to keep up with his movements and lock onto him. A few meters was nothing to the explosive strength of the Dan stage. In the blink of an eye, Lu Cheng was in front of Lu Xuanzhen. He raised his right hand and tightened his muscles. Lu Xuanzhen had rich experience in fighting with Dan stage fighters. His eyes were calm. His left hand grasped upward and used invisible peach stealing. His right hand pressed forward and used immortal shows the way. He was fighting an attack with an attack, making the first move in an instant. But all of a sudden, his vision blurred and he lost sight of Lu Cheng. This, quadruple bursts. Xiong Yu exclaimed in shock. Just as Lu Xuanzhen's hands were about to move, Lu Cheng finished the process of force concentration and eruption. He bounced his back and moved to the back of his opponent at an unimaginable speed. This was not a premonition, but a preparation to make Lu Xuanzhen unable to keep up with his movements. This was the essence of guerrilla fighting. At this moment, his right arm was still in the air and his muscles tightened again. Lu Cheng swung his arm and used Thunder Roar Zen. Lu Xuanzhen didn't even have the chance to turn around, let alone attack his opponent's weak point. He only had time to turn his body sideways and wrap his arm with psychokinesis to block the attack. Bang! The bomb exploded and the impact swept across. Lu Xuanzhen's weak psychokinesis was shattered and his body was also affected. His joints and fascia were trembling and he couldn't use his strength. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't attack first. Instead, he took a breath and gathered his qi, blood, spirit, and force to form the Dan again. Quintuple bursts. It wasn't Xiong Yu who blurted out, but Han Jifei and Zhang Zhutong. Boom! The force in Lu Cheng's body surged. He swayed his center of gravity and flashed away from Lu Xuanzhen's back. Lu Xuanzhen, who was still in shock, clenched his fist without hesitation and ignited his psychokinesis for the last and strongest counterattack. Whoosh! 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 The gravel on the ground flew toward Lu Cheng, aiming at his eyes, temples, nose bridge, dantian, and other vital points. At the same time, the invisible force danced wildly like a rope swinging in the air. However, all of this fell into the air. Lu Cheng had already rushed out of this range with the power of the dance stage explosion. He had a deep impression of Lu Xuanzhen's psychokinesis explosions that turned the tables several times. Even so, a piece of cloth had been torn from his trousers, making him feel cold. Lu Cheng took a deep breath as soon as his feet touched the ground. The surging qi and blood flowed back again, forming the dan again and exploding again. Boom! The black bricks exploded. He pounced on his enemy like a wolf or a tiger, swinging his arms and punching wildly. Lu Xuanzhen didn't have time to react and fell to the ground softly. Xiong Yu stood there in a daze and muttered to himself, sextuple bursts. You're not even in the dance stage yet, buddy. Are you still a damn human? Chapter 254. Lu Xuanzhen detonated his psychokinesis and was hit by Thunder Zen 3 times. Due to his physique as a professional ninth pin and the fact that he couldn't visualize or use the internal training method to weaken the effect, he collapsed to the ground. His head was buzzing and he felt soft all around him. He was so disgusted that he broke out in cold sweat and wanted to vomit. Seeing his body trembling and twitching from time to time, the referee closed his eyes and nodded to Lu Cheng with a kind face. Then he raised his right hand and announced the result loudly. Lu Cheng wins the second round. With a boom, the whole audience was in an uproar. Most of the audience paid attention to this match because of the seated player and were full of expectations for Lu Xuanzhen's psychokinesis. They didn't expect such an unexpected result. An ordinary professional ninth pin fighter who didn't stand out before showed an amazing burst of power. It took him less than a minute to end the match and defeat the seated player. Lu Cheng. Who is he? Why is he so powerful? Similar thoughts echoed in the minds of many audience members, making them eager to know more about this young fighter. Unlike the audience in front of the TV and computer screens who had already heard the commentator's introduction, they could only take out their mobile phones and quickly type on the keyboard. This was the so-called artificial intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence plus intelligence. For a moment, except for the uproar, there were not many cheers and applause in the audience. He won just like that? Lu Cheng's mother, Qi Fang, was the kind of person who just watched the fun. On one hand, she was happy that her son seemed to have won the seated player, but on the other hand, she was surprised that her son was so fast and agile. Yes. Jiang Fei, Qing Qili, and Tao Xiaofei all answered in a daze. It wasn't that they didn't imagine Lu Cheng would win, but they didn't expect him to win so quickly and so easily. Cheng's strength is so strong that it's beyond our imagination again. When Lu Xuanzhen's opponent needed to cover his eyes to protect his crotch and still failed inexplicably, those who watched Lu Xuanzhen's battle videos would feel their hair stand on end. However, if Lu Xuanzhen fell into a disadvantageous position and was defeated by his opponent in one fell swoop, it would be difficult for the ordinary audience to see how much the invisible psychokinesis had played in the battle. It would also be difficult for them to appreciate the danger of walking on a tightrope in the process. As a result, they would feel that Lu Xuanzhen had failed to put up any resistance at the beginning of the battle and allowed his opponent to win easily. Isn't it said that the seated player is the favorite to win the championship? Lu Cheng's father, Lu Jisheng, couldn't help feeling puzzled at the same time. Brother Lu Cheng is better. He is the favorite to win the championship. Qi Yunfei shouted excitedly, looking at the big screen. Beside her, Ma Xi and Chen Xiaoxiao also nodded in agreement. In the previous match, Lu Cheng's pouncing and moving speed were so fast that the unprepared close-range camera couldn't follow his movements. Therefore, the broadcast on the big screen was changed to a distant view, so the audience could only see the whole picture but not the details. It was not much different from directly staring at the arena. At this moment, the close-up view was replayed in slow motion. Only then did Qi Yunfei and the other girls realize that after Lu Cheng's dance stage burst, his muscles bulged and his fascia protruded. His entire person seemed to have grown a little taller, making people feel that he was majestic, full of strength, and manly. Yes, manly. The favorite to win the championship. Chao Lele covered her mouth and whispered to herself. Xiao Hailin showed both disbelief and inexplicable excitement at the same time. Sextuple explosion. Zhang Zhutong's hands in his pockets were clenched into fists. He subconsciously turned around and looked at Han Jifei, Qiu Lin, and the other top 5 seeded players. He saw the same shock in their eyes. Compared to professional 8th pin, professional 7th pin dance stage didn't have much of a transformation. However, those who could pass the ranking event and rise among the professional 8th pin must have improved in some aspects. For example, they had mastered a certain force, could complete sextuple explosion, sextuple explosion, sextuple explosion, and octuple explosion, had better control of the body, could slightly influence the details of the body, and improved strength, agility, and speed after breaking the limits of the human body. All in all, they were only shocked and surprised by Lu Cheng's sextuple explosion. They didn't expect a guy who hadn't completely stepped into the dance stage to be able to do this. They weren't particularly afraid of this dark horse. It was the same for the supernatural fighters whose combat strength was equal to professional 7th pin. Of course, with their insight, it wasn't difficult to see some facts. There was only one thought in their minds. If they were going to meet Lu Cheng in the knockout, they'd better do it as soon as possible. Lu Cheng was infinitely close to the dance stage. If they gave him a few more opportunities to practice, he might really enter the professional 8th pin. If they didn't take advantage of the fact that he was still weak, what were they waiting for? More importantly, his abnormal physical strength was directly exposed. With the tight schedule, the more they fought, the more obvious his advantage would be. What a monster! Zhang Zhutong's glamorous female companion looked around, not understanding their reactions. She only understood that the young fighter standing in the arena seemed to be very strong and could be called a strong opponent. Sextuple explosion? Gu Shuang had a standard cherry mouth, but it was now in an O shape. Although she had only trained to strengthen her body and didn't walk the path of martial arts, among her close friends, Yan Zhika and Xing Jingjing were closely related to martial arts. She was more or less influenced and knew a lot about martial arts. Naturally, she knew what the explosion of the dance stage was and what several explosions were. Most professional 8th pin dance stage fighters couldn't do sextuple explosion, right? Xing Jingjing pursed her lips and nodded after a long time. Yes. That's very strong. Gu Shuang sighed and then shivered. 'Cause man is so strong. Sister Jingjing, how are you going to educate him? Don't be the one to be taught a lesson. Xing Jingjing answered with a cold face, my supernatural ability is different from Lu Xuanzhen's. Yan Zhika hugged her computer and curled up on the bed, watching the match attentively. When she found that Lu Cheng had completed the initial stage of force concentration, she opened her mouth and was stunned at first. Then, she snorted with both anger and happiness. You didn't tell me. Humph, that idiot Xing wants to surprise me again. What a surprise! As she continued watching, the worry in her heart faded little by little. Her eyes widened little by little, shining like stars. Sextuple explosion. She whispered to herself, proud and happy. At this moment, her cell phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was a message from Li Liantong. This made her feel both angry and amused. She replied with the word, get lost, and secretly scolded Dirty Tong for being so dirty. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, the first to post was unexpectedly, unparalleled Dragon King. He tagged, Eternal Nightfall, Brahman, and Wonton Seller, who was going to be in the 3rd year of high school. It's still that familiar Lu Cheng. His strength has improved so fast that it's unbelievable. He creates miracles again and again. This reminds me of the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. It also makes me believe that he has a high chance of becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability. When my idol joins the Longhu Club, it will be perfect. Brahman still hadn't given up on her dream. Eternal Nightfall laughed with her arms akimbo. How could my eyes be wrong? Also, congratulations on getting a new skill, woman's intuition, unparalleled Dragon King said with a funny face. Since the match was broadcasted by Xing Province Satellite TV, they saw the number of followers start to increase after a long pause. After the referee announced the result, Lu Qing took a deep look at Lu Xuanzhen, who was trembling and retching on the ground. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked out of the arena. Originally, he had agreed not to rely on the Jin Dan this time and to weigh his own strength. However, in the end, he still borrowed it a little. Otherwise, he would only be able to complete the quintuple explosion, which might not be so easy in the end. After understanding why he was fighting and finding the source of his strength, he tempered and improved his martial arts will, which made his spirit improve by leaps and bounds. As for his physical strength, because he had been using the Jin Dan to train himself to the limit, he was much stronger than other martial artists of the same level. Even without the Jin Dan, he could still be considered a freak. With these two things, he could complete the quadruple explosion without the Jin Dan even though he hadn't completely entered the Dan stage. Yes, the quadruple explosion. This was the number he estimated. After that, he would have to rely on the Jin Dan to recover his strength and combine it with his spirit to continue the explosion. However, in the process of actually trying it, Lu Qing found that the force concentration completed by rotating and balancing had many mysteries. It didn't put a heavy burden on the body, which was why he could complete the quintuple explosion. Many factors led to the scene just now. In the Xing Province TV broadcast room, the host couldn't help but exclaim, "Awesome. I haven't seen anyone who can beat Lu Xuanzhen so easily in the past few years. Awesome. We have a successor in the martial arts world of Xing Province." Beside him, Yu Hong shook his head and smiled, "Not easy, not easy. Who dared to say that the quadruple explosion was easy? This old man will give you one. Yes, yes, yes. But no matter what, it's really awesome and miraculous." The host replied excitedly, "Let's connect to the reporter in front and watch her interview Lu Qing live." Wei Renjie watched in a daze. After a long time, he came back to his senses and found that Lu Qing was stopped by the reporter. He thought of something and said to Wu Ting with a smile, "Ting, aren't you going to congratulate your coach?" "Yeah." Wu Ting jumped up excitedly and rushed over with Zhang Chufan and other friends. Wei Renjie tidied his clothes and followed behind them. At this moment, he forgot about Sun Yixing who was still in a daze beside him. Chapter 255. He's almost at the Dan stage. Geyser stared at the TV on the sofa, wine in hand and dishes in front of him. As a master, since he had nothing better to do, he would definitely be concerned about his disciple's recent situation. As for Lu Cheng's sudden improvement and rebirth, he, who had been shocked, no, surprised, time and time again, had long gotten used to it and was numb to it. He even had a feeling of, as expected. Did he give up on the integration of cultivation? No, if this brat had really given up, he would have called me and asked me about the normal practice of Dan stage. Since he didn't do that, it means he has achieved his initial goal. And at his limit, he can't complete the sextuple explosion without a sudden change. Is this part of the benefits of integrating cultivation? As a mighty one with physical invulnerability, how could Geyser not notice when Lu Cheng was pushing himself to the limit? It was just that he wasn't accurate enough. Therefore, unlike what Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika thought, only the two of them knew that Lu Cheng could get tired. This made Geyser very confused about Lu Cheng's current situation. What did this brat do? Feeling confused, Geyser looked at the phone beside him. However, since the last time he asked for guidance, the brat hadn't called for a long time. He even seemed to have forgotten to report that he was about to reach the dance stage. This made it very boring for him to be a master, a forgotten lonely old man. Lu Cheng had just taken back his phone from the competition supervisor when he was stopped by a beautiful white-collared reporter. In front of him were long guns and short cannons. "Hello Lu Cheng, I'm Wu Wei, a reporter from Xing Province Satellite TV. Is it convenient for you to accept an interview? It won't take long." The white-collared beauty showed a professional smile and handed over the microphone in her hand. "Sure." Lu Cheng turned slightly so that his face was facing the camera. Wu Wei said with a smile, "You are the first fighter to beat a seated fighter since the start of the competition. It's not a big deal but not a small one. Before this, you seemed to be unknown. Not only did we not know, but even the organizing committee didn't know. Your strength is enough to be a seated fighter." She was also present at the youth competition banquet that day. She did a few interviews and deliberately threw out this topic to stir up controversy and hype. "Maybe it's because I've been studying in a foreign university, so I don't have much fame in the province. Also, I've improved a lot recently. You can't see it just by watching the videos of my previous matches." Lu Cheng answered calmly. Wu Wei was slightly disappointed. She smiled and asked, "Did you really only learn martial arts for a year? I'm very curious about this. The viewers in front of the TV should be very curious too. I started practicing martial arts last October." Lu Cheng didn't try to hide anything. This information could be easily found on the internet. Dance stage in 1 year. What a rare genius. Wu Wei was not stingy with her praise. Because there was still a broadcast later, there was very little time left for the interview. She did not expand on this topic and continued to ask, "This is your first time fighting with a martial artist who mainly uses abilities, right? You seem to have won quite easily. What do you think?" It wasn't easy. The fighting style of martial artists who mainly use supernatural abilities is very different from normal martial artists. It made me feel a little uncomfortable. Although I looked fine just now, I was actually walking on a tightrope and was almost at my limit. Lu Cheng said humbly. As for how close he was to his limit, it was up to him to guess. "I see." Wu Wei glanced at the other rings and threw out the last question. "Lu Cheng, what's your goal in this youth tournament?" "Top 16. Lu Cheng had fought with all his strength, so he felt that if he was too humble, he would appear hypocritical. So he answered confidently and calmly, "Top 4. Top 4 was not the fourth, but the fourth, the third, the second, and the first. Top 4. Wu Wei was pleasantly surprised. She felt that she had finally found the breaking point. "Then I wish you success. Thank you for accepting the interview." Because of the break between matches, some of the big screens were replaying the previous fight, while others were broadcasting the interview to thousands of viewers. Top 4. Zhang Zhutong had already unclenched his fists in his pockets. Looking at the broadcast on the big screen and listening to Lu Cheng's calm answer, he raised his eyebrows. His fighting spirit was ignited in his heart. It was not because of gratitude, hatred, or jealousy. It was the pure desire of a martial artist to defeat a strong opponent. Top 4. Let's see how lucky you are. Han Jifei slid his finger across the scar on his face and whispered to himself, "Top 4, what a coincidence. My goal is the same. And I want to fight for the championship." Top 4. Han Ning and Xiong Yu were both muttering to themselves. They did not think that Lu Cheng was arrogant or overconfident. A quasi-dance stage fighter who could complete sextuple explosion was qualified to say that. Top 4. Qi Yunfei's eyes lit up. She raised her hands and cheered loudly, "Brother Lu Cheng is so handsome." The plain, "Top 4, didn't sound like a statement of a desired goal, but rather an announcement of a predetermined result. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, in the interview covered by countless people, such a confident answer, that kind of attitude, "Brother Lu Cheng is so handsome." I have to ask for more autographs for Cheng. Maybe I can make a fortune in the future. Jiang Fei said to himself without ambition. Chao Lele, Chiu Hailin, and the others came back to their senses and burst into laughter. It was the first time that Qi Fang and Lu Jisheng saw their son on TV. Recalling the image of him running around in diapers when he was a child, they felt that things had changed. As soon as Lu Qing walked out of the arena and entered the grandstand area, Wu Ting, Zhang Qifan, and the other teenagers appeared in front of him. They were so excited that their faces were flushed, and their eyes were bright. They expressed their thoughts noisily without any organization. Sir Lu, you are so awesome. You were so handsome just now. So awesome. Lu Qing smiled and shook his head. He reached out his right hand and gave them a celebratory high five, which made them even more excited. At this time, Wei Renjie took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, Lu, we've known each other for half a year, right? I didn't realize that you were such an outstanding martial artist. My eyes must be blurred. I really can't imagine that someone who has only been practicing martial arts for such a short time can be so powerful. Half a year ago, I didn't think I could reach this level, let alone you, Chairman. Lu Qing responded with a smile. This was also true. During the winter vacation, he thought he could enter the dance stage in 1 or 2 years. After a few words of greeting, Wei Renjie took the initiative to ask, Lu, are you interested in joining the preliminaries of Shushan and making a contribution to our hometown? He knew there was not much hope. If Lu Qing really wanted to participate in the preliminaries, Chu Weikai would have mentioned it. Chairman, you know, I am studying in Songcheng and have the university martial arts competition. I don't have the time or energy to do this. I want to, but I can't. Lu Qing politely declined the invitation. This had always been his idea, and he would not change it. He could not lose the watermelon for the sesame. He had to distinguish the important points. I understand. Wei Renjie sighed and suddenly smiled. If that's the case, then let me ask you one more thing. After the youth tournament is over, we will officially form a team and begin special training. At that time, we will invite many strong people to be our instructors. I wonder if you are interested in this? We can discuss the remuneration. Instructor? Remuneration? Lu Qing thought about the arrangement in August and answered with a little excitement, I will see if I have time. Okay, call me when you decide. Wei Renjie exchanged numbers with Lu Qing. After dealing with the students of the VIP class, Lu Qing waved to his parents in the stands and Qin Rui further away. He pointed to his phone, indicating that he had to call first. He walked along the aisle and out of the stadium. He found a secluded place and dialed a number. Without a doubt, it was Coach Yan's number. Hello? Yan Jika saw the call and was happy. Her eyes softened and she sat up with her legs crossed. Lu Qing, who had been so confident in the interview on the satellite channel, leaned against the wall in the corner without a care for his image. He laughed and said, Did you see? Did you see the surprise I gave you? See what? Humph, I didn't see anything. Yan Jika understood Lu Cheng's meaning tacitly. She said coquettishly, You are about to master force concentration, so you must have not learned it recently. You have been hiding from me for a long time. You are good at hiding. If you hide something from me in the future, I will never find out. Well, this is not the right direction. Lu Qing pulled himself together and said with a smile, I want to give you a surprise, right? What's the surprise if I know in advance? Besides, it's because we don't do morning exercises together every day. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to hide it even if I wanted to. When we get married and live together every day, what can I hide from you? Who wants to marry you? Yan Jika was so embarrassed that she punched the plush doll. Cheng, you don't know what to say. Live together every day. Hee hee. Lu Cheng, who had successfully changed the topic, said with a smile, The game is over. Coach Yan, aren't you going to praise me? Praise you for what? Yenjika asked with a smile. Praise Lu Cheng for being awesome. Lu Cheng for being awesome. Lu Cheng for being awesome. Lu Cheng joked exaggeratedly, releasing the joy of defeating Lu Xuanjun. Pfft. Yenjika rolled her eyes and laughed. Cheng, you are getting funnier and more shameless. Just livening up the atmosphere, Lu Cheng replied modestly. Hearing his words, Yenjika suddenly had an idea. She held back her laughter, covered her face with one hand, closed her eyes and shouted in an exaggerated tone, Lu Cheng for being awesome. Lu Cheng for being awesome. Lu Cheng for being awesome. After shouting, she laughed out loud. Oh no, I've been infected by Cheng's exaggeration. I'm so shameless. Haha. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. His body and mind became comfortable. When he stopped laughing, he became emotional and asked softly, Ku, when will you come back? In 2 or 3 days. I'm almost at the beginner level of the internal training method. Yenjika also calmed down and said with a throbbing heart, wait for me. 2 or 3 days? Don't worry, I'll definitely wait for you. Lu Cheng promised. In the afternoon, Lu Cheng drew a top 9 in the 5th match of the 3rd arena. But before it was his turn, enough people had been eliminated in the previous matches, so there was no need for the following matches. He was officially in the top 32 of the challenge tournament. After having lunch with his parents and taking a walk, Lu Cheng returned to the hotel. When he entered the lobby, he found that many people were looking at him, as if they were pointing at him. After the broadcast on the satellite channel, I'd become famous among the martial arts fans in the province. He shook his head and laughed. In the blink of an eye, he forgot about it. Entering the dance stage is the most important thing. The next morning, Lu Cheng received a call from Yenjika as soon as he came back from training. Cheng, your opponent is out. The girl's tone was a little strange. My opponent for the top 32 knockout match is out? What time is it? Lu Cheng asked in surprise, who is it? Yenjika cleared her throat. Sister Jingjing. She has connections in the Martial Artist Association of Xing Province. She knew the result as soon as the draw came out. Sister Jingjing? Lu Cheng frowned slightly. Another martial artist who mainly relied on special abilities. Chapter 256. The sun at the end of July was scorching and fierce. Even at 8 in the morning, it was still daunting. Knowing that his opponent in the knockout round of the top 32 was Xing Jingjing, Lu Cheng recalled what Yenjika had told him. His girlfriend's best friend's supernatural ability was to affect the surrounding air and create visual and auditory errors, creating an effect similar to illusions. It sounds like it can be countered by absolute reaction. Lu Cheng murmured to himself. He smiled cautiously. Coach Yen, do you have any videos of Jingjing's matches? I do, but I don't think it's useful. Jingjing only participated in the university martial arts competition last year, and Hua Hai has in Chaoyang, a professional 7th pin fighter. She won't be able to face a dance stage opponent. The fights between professional 9th pin fighters won't be of much use to you now. Yenjika answered while thinking. The year before Peng Liyun entered Shanbei University, the champion of the National University Martial Arts Competition was Hua Hai University. They had a strong foundation and many strong fighters. Even now, An Chaoyang, who was about to enter his senior year, was a genius on par with Peng Liyun and Ren Li. Because he always looked sleepy, his nickname was Sleeping Tiger. It was said that he was trying his best to break through to 6th pin. I still have to take a look and get a direct impression of her superpower. If I were to fail miserably here, how am I supposed to face others? How can I face your best friends? Lu Cheng said humorously. That's true. Cheng, I won't cheer for you today. Yenjika's tone became light. If you lose to Jingjing, I'll laugh at you for half a year. Speaking of this, she solemnly said, don't be careless. I feel that the absolute reaction may not be reliable. What? Lu Cheng was surprised. Think about it. What is the principle of absolute reaction? Yan Jika asked. Lu Cheng thought about what he had learned and seen. When one's martial arts is practiced to the finest level, the strength of the whole body is almost as one, and when it blends with the spirit, qi, and blood, the body can sense the slight changes in the environment. When the enemy attacks, as long as there is a real intention, no matter the look or the preparation, it will cause disturbances, more or less affecting the surroundings. That's why absolute reaction exists. What is the medium of this disturbance? Yan Jika reminded him. Air. Lu Cheng couldn't help but take a breath. From the looks of it, Xing Jingjing's supernatural ability had the potential to mislead and stimulate to a certain extent. This battle wasn't going to be easy. In an instant, the first thing that came to his mind was the special feature of the Jin Dan, which helped him to sense Zhang Shuming's approach. It seemed to be a perfect counter to Xing Jingjing's supernatural ability. But he gave up the idea after a second thought, because it went against his original goal, to not rely on the Jin Dan and to measure his own strength. During the battle with Lu Xuanjun yesterday, although he had borrowed the Jin Dan's ability to recover fatigue, he had already won. Even if he didn't use it, it would only be a little troublesome. This time, if he mainly relied on his Jin Dan, then it would be meaningless. I have to seriously think about how to make the call. Lu Cheng and Yan Jika exchanged a few words and hung up the phone. He took off his clothes and stood under the faucet of the shower, pondering. On one side was her boyfriend, and on the other side was her best friend. Yan Jika was in a dilemma. After ending the call, she knelt on the bed, thinking about the fight this morning. Which side should I take? At this moment, there was a knock on the door. She quickly changed her sitting position and said, "Who is it?" "Sister Lingxi." She vaguely recognized the footsteps of her cousin, Ji Lingxi. "You have good hearing." Ji Lingxi opened the door and leaned against the door with a smile. "We're going out to sea. Do you want to come?" She was half a head taller than Yan Jika and looked more like Ji Mingyu when she was younger than her cousin. "No, it's boring. I don't like parties that are too noisy and messy." Yan Jika frowned slightly. To be honest, going out to sea on Grandpa's yacht and looking at the blue sky was indeed relaxing. Occasionally, fishing and chatting were quite interesting. But now she felt that without Chang's company, she couldn't muster up the energy to do these things. Not to mention that her cousin would invite friends to different kinds of parties at sea. She didn't like such occasions and was even more resistant. Ji Lingxi chuckled. "Many men will be very disappointed. They've been yearning for our quiet little beauty." Because of Yan Jika's father's genes, Yan Jika was undoubtedly the most beautiful in the generation of the Ji family. She was also very gentle and scholarly. Gentle and quiet? How am I gentle and quiet? Yan Jika burst into laughter. "Well, I have to let Xing know that someone praised me for being gentle and quiet. You're always so quiet at every banquet and gathering. You don't like to talk." Ji Lingxi laughed. "All right, it's fine if you don't want to go. Come with me later." "Ah." Yan Jika frowned. This was not a simple and easy task. Watching her cousin leave, she recalled the conversation just now and realized that she had actually nagged Ching twice in just a few words. She already knew the answer to her previous dilemma. She smiled to herself and said, "Sister Jingjing, I'm sorry. I value love more than friends." Lu Ching jogged into the stadium and came to the big screen to confirm the matchups. Central Arena, 4th match in the morning. Number 18 Lu Ching, 19 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 79 Xing Jingjing, 20 years old, professional 9th pin. 4th match. Lu Ching was about to leave the big screen when a woman in a business suit suddenly came to him. She smiled and showed 8 teeth. "Mr. Lu Ching, right?" "Yes, what's the matter?" Lu Ching asked in confusion. I'm Fong Siki, a staff member of the Youth Tournament Organizing Committee. The woman in business suit smiled like a spring breeze. I'm responsible for taking you to the exclusive lounge. Exclusive lounge? Lu Qing was confused, but he was able to confirm Fong Siki's identity from her tag and other items. Fong Siki answered with a smile, "You'll understand when you get there." She pointed and led the way. She led Lu Qing through the stadium to the other end, where they entered a lounge with many rooms. "Mr. Lu Qing, there's a retreat room, a viewing room, a puppet room, a massage room, a hydrotherapy room, and a shower room. It can help you relax and recover before and after a match. You can choose an unmarked room." Fong Siki explained dutifully. Lu Qing seemed to understand something. He asked, "Is this the exclusive lounge for the seated players?" "Yes, you're qualified to use this place." Fong Siki answered humbly. If Lu Qing was already 24 or 25 years old, the leaders of the organizing committee wouldn't make such an arrangement even if his current performance was very outstanding. They were all doing business and didn't need to worry about offending anyone. However, a 19-year-old in the dance stage who had been practicing martial arts for less than a year. Everyone was looking forward to seeing how far he could go in the future. It was normal to show some favor when there was a chance. "I see." Lu Qing nodded and didn't say anything more. After sharing this with Yan Jika, he suddenly felt a bit more pressure. If he was eliminated by Xing Jingjing right after he got the right to use the exclusive lounge, it would be a big loss of face. From the top 32, there was only the central ring left. There were 16 matches, 8 in the morning and 8 in the afternoon, with some small programs in between. In other words, all the matches would be broadcasted. Looking at the staff of the TV station busily preparing, Wei Renjie smiled and said to Chu Weikai and Sun Yixing, "If Lu Qing wins 2 or 3 more matches, the brand of Shushan will be famous. It's a pity that he won't have time to participate in the preliminaries." Sun Yixing had already understood Lu Qing's situation and thoughts from Chu Weikai, so he wasn't jealous anymore. He answered sincerely, "If he really participates in the preliminaries, with the situation of our province, he might be able to lead the team into the second stage of the preliminaries." He really couldn't think of fighting against such a genius who didn't have any interest with him. Of course, there was hurt when there was a comparison, especially when Wei Renjie kept mentioning Lu Qing. He also felt a lot of bitterness and suffering in his heart. Lu Qing's future is not in Shushan. Chu Weikai said with a sigh. After yesterday, the name of Gushan Martial Arts School spread throughout the province along with Lu Qing's popularity. The advertising value was more than 1 million. This was the advantage of making friends in advance. Wei Renjie was quite emotional. "Yeah, the pond is too small to raise a real dragon." After the matches, Lu Qing got the hint from the staff to leave the lounge. Under the gaze of many people, he went up to the ring. Xing Jingjing was already there, wearing a black martial arts suit that set off her snow-white skin, which made her look cold and beautiful. Seeing her, Lu Qing suddenly remembered what his girlfriend had said before. Sister Jingjing's supernatural ability came from fear, from the mentality of wanting to avoid danger. Chapter 257. Standing in front of Xing Jingjing, Lu Qing greeted her politely, "Senior sister." Although he called her Sister Jingjing like his girlfriend did in private, he felt it was more appropriate to call her senior sister in a formal setting due to their actual relationship. Their relationship was too shallow to call each other too familiar. Xing Jingjing nodded slightly and uttered a single syllable. After she finished speaking, she continued to maintain her usual coldness and silence, keeping everyone 1,000 miles away from her and refusing to make any conversation. Looks like the conversation time is also like this. Lu Qing thought. He closed his eyes and reorganized his thoughts. With Sister Jingjing's mental problems, if he provoked her with words during the conversation time, he would most likely get a good result. However, this would make him look like a man. Unless it was a battle of life and death, he couldn't confidently poke a woman's most painful scar, even if he wasn't facing an acquaintance. Forget it. I'll just fight with my martial arts strength. The conversation time starts now. The referee pulled open the curtains of the match. Just as Lu Qing expected, Xing Jingjing didn't say a word, as if she had turned into an ice sculpture. Lu Cheng was adjusting his physical and mental state, as well as coming up with a plan for the fight and a strategy for taking risks at critical moments. At this moment, he was very regretful that he wasn't able to enter the dance stage ahead of time. Although he could use force concentration, absolute reaction, and combine the forces of his entire body as one, he possessed almost all the characteristics of this level. He was not much different from an 8th pin dance stage fighter, and might even be a little more powerful. However, from an essential point of view, a little difference was still a little difference. Not even the slightest difference would do. Human body Big Dan didn't only mean that one's strength was smooth and transparent, but it also meant that one's spirit, chi, blood, and force were initially integrated and connected. Therefore, even if Lu Cheng's force concentration couldn't be integrated into one point after incorporating the concept of rotation and balance, he still had a standard to judge whether he had entered the dance stage. That was, when the spirit, chi, blood, and force were condensed to a certain extent, they would begin to connect and integrate. At this point, when the spirit, chi, spirit, and force were integrated, one could be called a real dance stage fighter. Going further up, when they were further integrated, the intuition, sixth sense, and danger premonition symbolized by spirit would blend with the senses formed by skin, muscles, and so on, allowing absolute reaction to reach a higher level, resulting in a qualitative change. This was the ability that only professional 7th pin or even 6th pin martial artists possessed. When one's consciousness was able to look inwards and project one's mind outwards, this kind of sensing ability would exceed one's own ability and become an area of effect. The ice mirror was at the same level as this. Up till this point, Lu Qing finally understood why he couldn't get started with the ice mirror. If he wanted to master the ice mirror before his essence, chi, spirit, will, and force were integrated into one and completed the next step of fusion, it wasn't enough for him to enter meditation and have inward vision. He had to break through this realm to make up for his shortcomings in other aspects. No wonder Master said that it would be pretty good to be able to cultivate in 2 or 3 years. He's taking into account the increase in my cultivation realm. He was simply tricking his disciple. 3 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. The referee raised his right hand and was about to swing it down. Yan Shaoling and the others, who were watching the match, felt that this match would not be difficult because they lacked a deep understanding of Xing Jingjing's superpower. They were leisurely eating snacks, enjoying the feeling of victory. Begin. The voice reverberated, suppressing the noise of the stadium and resounding in every corner. Lu Qing didn't jump out to close the distance and make the first move like he did in previous matches. Instead, he took a stance, lowered his waist, and stepped forward. He raised his right hand in front of his face to protect his eyes, temples, and other vulnerable spots. His left hand lowered to cover his lower abdomen and crotch. He was in a passive defensive posture. The spectators, who were somewhat knowledgeable about martial arts, were dumbfounded. They didn't understand why the genius fighter who had sent the 9th seed flying 6 times in a row yesterday was so cautious. His opponent wasn't a seeded fighter, and she didn't have any outstanding battle records or dazzling performances. At this moment, Zhang Zhutong, who was convinced of Lu Cheng's strength and knew that he wouldn't shoot without thinking, frowned slightly. He suddenly realized that the cold beauty in front of him was not easy to deal with. Well, she seemed to be from Shoshan, so Lu Qing must know her well. Her superpower of illusion was not simple. If he attacked rashly and launched a sudden attack, he was afraid that he would only hit the air and expose more flaws in himself. Zhang Zhutong turned his head to look at Han Jifei, Qiu Lin, and the others. Unsurprisingly, he found that they also looked dignified. In the arena, Xing Jingjing tiptoed. Her tall and slender figure moved with curved footwork and quickly approached Lu Qing. She swung her right arm like a whip and whipped toward her opponent's neck. A tingling sensation appeared on Lu Cheng's neck before she really attacked, so he didn't dare to be careless. He would rather believe it than not, so he bounced his spine and forcibly pulled his body back to the left, avoiding the attack. At this moment, the hair on Lu Cheng's right shoulder stood on end. He felt some kind of danger approaching. He believed that it wasn't an illusion because there was a physical collision. Bam! A clenched fist hit his shoulder. The moment they made contact, Xing Jingjing's figure on the other side disappeared as if the holographic projection had ended. Her superpower could indeed interfere with this level of absolute reaction. Seeing this, Zhang Zhutong wasn't surprised. He just narrowed his eyes imperceptibly. At the critical moment, when Xing Jingjing's whip hit his shoulder, Lu Cheng's qi, blood, force, and spirit suddenly shrank, pulling all his senses inward into a small ball. Force concentration. He seemed to have been waiting for this moment. Lu Cheng's body suddenly became empty. Even the smell of life seemed to have disappeared. When Xing Jingjing hit him, she felt that there was nothing under her fist and there was no place to exert force. Just as she was about to stretch her fascia, flick her joints, and launch a second attack with the inch punch to break through the strange force dissipation effect, the small ball in Lu Cheng's dantian suddenly exploded, spewing out a torrential and terrifying force. Crack! Lu Cheng sank his feet, turned his back, and opened his bones and joints. Before Xing Jingjing could use the inch force, he threw her like an elephant. Xing Jingjing couldn't resist the Dan force and was immediately thrown out. She lost her center of gravity, like a kite with a broken string. Opportunity knocks but once. Lu Qing used force concentration again, showing an amazing burst of power. He pounced and caught up with his opponent who hadn't landed yet. His abdominal muscles bulged. He pressed down with his left hand and punched with his right fist. Rocket cannon. Bam! Lu Qing hit Xing Jingjing, but it exploded in the air. He couldn't hit his target. He could only watch as his opponent disappeared in front of him. Fake. Illusion. Lu Qing didn't dare to stay. He took advantage of the situation and strode forward. Xing Jingjing appeared not far from him. She staggered and steadied her center of gravity. After a few steps, Lu Qing came to the edge of the arena. He used the momentum to turn around and rearrange his stance. This time, he was going to fight with his back against the wall to reduce the places he needed to defend. I don't believe you can fly in the air and attack me from behind. Xing Jingjing glanced at him indifferently. Without hesitation, she stepped forward again. The two collisions just now made the audience look at each other. Many people couldn't help but rub their eyes, wondering if there was something wrong with their eyesight. It wasn't until now that they realized that the tall and silent girl wasn't here to be a bystander. On the contrary, she was very strong. She could actually threaten the genius martial artist who had become an unknown winner yesterday. Could it be another unknown winner? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Yan Shaoling looked at the match screen with her eyes wide open. Her hands unconsciously sent a post. As for snacks, she had already forgotten about them. Yan Zhika pursed her lips tightly. She was worried but not panicked. She knew and believed that Cheng still had some tricks up his sleeve. He wouldn't be so helpless. Before the match, she and Lu Cheng had carefully discussed the strategy and countermeasures. Should I take the risk and use that move? Standing beside the arena, Lu Cheng still blocked with his right hand and left hand to protect his vital parts. He didn't take the initiative to attack. His eyes were dark and deep. He locked onto Xing Jingjing's rapidly approaching figure, as if he was trying to distinguish whether she was real or not. Bam! Xing Jingjing suddenly put her feet inward, lowered her waist and swung her shoulders, and threw a normal but fierce punch. Lu Qing swayed his center of gravity and moved his waist and back to the left. He dodged to the left like a crab, keeping the edge of the arena behind him. Bam! A fist appeared out of nowhere and appeared on his left rib. It exploded the air and stirred up the wind. It directly hit the target. At this moment, Lu Cheng's dantian dropped. His breath, spirit, and force once again converged and condensed into a human body Big Dan. Xing Jingjing didn't feel surprised at all. It didn't feel like she had hit his flesh or bones. Instead, it felt like she had hit something empty. She had been prepared. She suddenly exerted force on her knuckles, and in a flash, her 5 fingers turned into 5 bullets. They were going to drill into his flesh and break his ribs. This is the time. Lu Cheng's pupils shrank. He suddenly exploded the human body Big Dan and let the force surge out. At the same time, he barely kept his spirit and visualized the scene of turbid waves rolling in his mind. During force concentration, it was impossible to visualize because of the inward contraction of the spirit. If one wanted to use the explosive force of the Dan stage to activate the core force such as frost force and meteor force, one had to seize the short time after the eruption of force and adjust the corresponding muscles, fascia, and internal organs. It was not easy. Therefore, this was something that couldn't be done by professional 8th pin, 7th pin, or 6th pin Dan stage. Only when one reached the inhuman level could he use the core force of his entire body when he burst out with all his strength. It was the same for Lu Cheng. When he imitated the explosive force of the Dan stage, he only had time to activate the Thunder Roar Zen. But this time, he didn't want to use the Frost Force. He just wanted to use it to strengthen his supernatural ability of frost. The cold wind hit and the temperature dropped sharply. The river froze and everything froze. The cold current in Lu Cheng's body turned into a surging cold wave. The muscles on his left ribs suddenly swelled, revealing the dark blue tendons and blood vessels. It seemed to have become a shrinking fist and collided with Xing Jingjing's 5 fingers. The force of his whole body was as one, which meant that he could use most of his body to attack. It was just that the strength of his body couldn't reach the level of his hands and feet. Because of this, Lu Cheng's goal was to win with injuries. Through this kind of physical contact, he could exchange a small injury for an opportunity to inject the cold wave into Xing Jingjing's body. As long as she was frozen out for a moment, with her own strength, there was nothing to be afraid of. Bang! Xing Jingjing's 5 fingers clawed into Lu Cheng's flesh, and the surging cold wave gushed out. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.